having network difficulties, and rather than continue to delay, we do have a solution that meets the letter of the law. The meeting is still being recorded by audio. Will be posted following the meeting. Brian, any other technicolor I need there?
No, I think that's fine to do that. I don't think the law is intended to make us wait
Okay.
indefinitely for a technological issue.
Okay, thank you. But the meeting is being recorded as we speak, so, and it will be available following. So thanks to everyone for understanding. I want to welcome any media or other officials or dignitaries that may be in our audience today. And again, to those who may be listening in, thank you for your interest in the Tennessee Board of Regents. I want to begin this morning before we move into our business on a sad note, unfortunately, on this beautiful spring day. There are a number of losses in our community, and I want to begin with two that have occurred here in our Tennessee Board of Regents system. And following this, I would welcome everyone to join me in a moment of silence. We talked last night at our SOAR Awards dinner about the importance of family to this organization. And we have lost two folks recently who served long and extremely productive lives of service to Tennessee, both of whom served on our board. I'll begin with Regent Buddy Bowers, who served one term on the board, 1999 to 2005. He was originally appointed by Governor Sundquist. Folks from East Tennessee and around the Knoxville area know of his tremendous legacy. He had a private law practice in Roane County. He was general counsel for Lockheed Martin's Energy Research Corporation in that area. He served in the United States Army in the Georgia National Guard. He led a leadership school at McGee-Tyson Air Force Base, and he was also a lieutenant colonel in the Civil Air Patrol. So a great American on all fronts. I talked to President Whaley briefly last night, who talked to me about the continued involvement of both Buddy and Kay Bowers at Roane State Community College. So a dedicated public servant. And Buddy died earlier this month. He had a great run, but clearly his service to Tennessee was very much a part of his heart, for which we are grateful. The second individual, also from East Tennessee, Keith McCord. Who served two terms on this board as a representative from the at-large representative from East Tennessee from 1992 to 2004, appointed first by Governor McWhorter and then reappointed by Governor Sundquist. He too had a tremendous legacy of service in the United States Marine Corps, a UT graduate, and he was Big Orange, obviously, till the day he died. He practiced law for 50 years. He was a farmer and a political consultant. He and his wife often hosted gatherings at their farm in Blount County for UT and other worthy causes. His wife, Peggy, they were married for 67 years. And Pellissippi State looks forward to celebrating her life next month, or May rather, so it's almost April, but in May, as they'll be hosting her 88th birthday and a celebration of the tremendous legacy that both McCords have given to Pellissippi State. So keep those two families in your hearts. For both of them, their service on the Board of Regents, as accomplished as they were, both of them count their service on the Board of Regents as one of the highlights of their public service career, and for that we will always be grateful. And then, of course, finally, as we recognized last night, this has been an incredibly tragic week here in Nashville and certainly for across Tennessee, with the loss of those 6 precious lives at the Covenant School. I know all of us are grieving in different ways and unique ways and thinking of these families. And I have found, even just in conversations with folks across Nashville this week, the many tentacles of those lives and folks who have been touched by those children and those 3 adults, and of course including our governor and first lady, whose hearts are heavy as well. So if you would, keep these families in your hearts and in your thoughts and your prayers at this incredibly difficult time. Would you join me in a moment of silence as we honor the children and staff at Covenant School and our 2 former regents? Amen, and thank you all. With that, Mariah, would you do us the honors of calling the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Governor Lee, Regent Apple,
Here.
Regent Burdine,
Here.
Regent George,
Here.
Regent Gill,
Here.
Commissioner Hatcher, Regent Hooper,
Here.
Regent Kastner,
Here.
Regent Long, Regent Powers,
Here.
Vice Chair Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Schwen, Regent Shelton, here, Regent Smith,
Here.
Regent Spurgeon,
Here.
Regent Barlin,
Here.
Regent Womp,
Here.
and Regent White.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I want to mention that Regent Long, our student regent, is not here today for one very good reason. A recent graduate of TCAT Hohenwald, he has a great new job that is keeping him on the road. So hopefully we will see him in June, but he is one of our most recent success stories. So we miss him, but we send him our well wishes. And we think that Regent Hatcher is on the way as well. He's always such a great participant. Before I call on the Chancellor, I also want to mention some new faces at this table, although we've all had occasion to be on Zoom with them by now and certainly know them in other capacities. And those are our new regents. Regent Hooper from Shelbyville, welcome. Thank you. Regent Kestner from Williamson County, good morning. And Regent Spurgeon, President of the Jackson Chamber of Commerce, welcome. So we've all had a chance to get acquainted and attend committee chairs together earlier this month, and they are engaged and have come in feet first, for which we're extremely grateful, and their expertise would serve us well. And speaking of expertise, we are very excited to have join us our interim THEC chair, Dr. Bob Smith, who of course serves as ex officio regent with us. You have a tremendous legacy of your own service to Tennessee. Chancellor at Martin, not once, but twice. He loved it so much he had to go back for a second round at bat. President of a university in Pennsylvania, but we're lucky he came back home to Tennessee and is now serving the state in this capacity. Dr. Smith, welcome. Anything from you this morning for us?
No, but thank you. You've made me feel very welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, you are very welcome, and we appreciate your expertise and counsel here.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. With that, and finally, before I forget, we had a reappointment to our board as well. Regent Tom White, welcome back. We're so glad. Thank you. And now that he's retired, we've put a lot on his plate, and we're not alone.
A lot of people.
Exactly. I know, we're joining the crowd, right, with new assignments for you. So thank you. We're excited and appreciate the governor's reappointment of Regent White. And once again, and I promised her I won't labor over this or go on too long this morning, but I would be remiss if we didn't once again point out with folks who might not have been in attendance at dinner last night that our very own Chancellor, Flora Tidings, was named the Tennessee Woman of the Year by USA Today. There she is.
And I told Emily I promised not to cry.
That's all right. No, and somewhere here, oh, here it is. We have another one of these for you. One for home, one for the office, one for the house in Georgia.
You'll be like Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, exactly. That was hilarious. That is hilarious. Everybody needs a traveling copy.
There we go.
But we are proud of you. Congratulations. We're also very proud of last night's SOAR celebration. And so with that, let me thank you and the team for that extraordinary lift, but exciting evening to honor the great accomplishments of our folks in this system, from students to faculty to staff. The list goes on. But give us the highlights of last night. The floor is yours, Woman of the Year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to begin by thanking everybody that helped make last night possible. It was a tremendous event. We are so excited to be able to celebrate the exceptional people in our system, and those of you that put that together made it happen. I would like for everybody that volunteered to stand up one more time if you had anything to do with last night, stand up and let us give you a round of applause, please. Kim, Matthew, Heidi. Again, particularly, I want to thank Carol Tomlinson and Matthew because they led the event. I want to thank Chris Perkins for the fundraising because we paid for none of that last night with state dollars. That was all money raised. And the scholarships given to the students was money raised. Our sponsors, again, Amazon, Ayers Foundation, AT&T, Barbara McMurray, Bell Construction, Blue Cross Blue Shield, D2L, Follett, Hip Hughes, Hoare Construction, IMC Companies, thank you, Regent George, Learning Labs, Milik Media, Morning Point Senior Living, the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, Orcutt Winslow Architects, SCORE, Stowers Machinery, Train, and last but certainly not least, William and Pam Summons for their contribution. So thanks to everybody that made that happen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Oh, okay, I didn't want to rush you.
No, I'm good.
So, and on mentioning William and Pam Summons, some of you remember Bill as a faculty regent, taught at Southwest Mathematics. Just an extraordinary individual. And I mention it because all of these folks are family. But for Bill and Pam to stay active and to continue to support us financially and with their presence, again, just underscores the importance of these relationships and that family atmosphere. So it's always a pleasure to have them with us. But we are grateful to you all, and Carol, who doesn't say a whole lot because she works so hard. You are amazing. You and Matthew together are quite a team. Thank you. All right, folks, let's move into our business agenda, if you will. We have 2 sets of minutes, and I'm assuming, Brian, can we adopt both of these in one motion?
If the chair so desires.
All right, okay, thank you. Does that mean I get in trouble if I so desire, or I'm okay?
No, you're fine.
Okay, all right, thank you. Oh, 2 sets of minutes, one from our December 1, 2022 quarterly meeting, and a second one thanks to the keen eye of Mariah, who on returning from her maternity leave with that precious Grace Ann, went back and thoughtfully read through all of the board minutes and found a quick amendment we need to make, just a slight date change from December of 21. So thank you for that keen eye. Does anyone have any questions or changes with regard to these 2 sets of minutes? And if not, we'll entertain a motion to approve. Thank you very much. Second. Thank you, Regent Apple. A second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And you guys, we're all in the same room today. We don't have anybody zooming in. So we can take voice votes and you don't have to answer questions. And anyway, so this is refreshing to all be together. Our second item is the Chancellor's Interim Action Report, which was in our materials. Chancellor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The interim action report was included in the materials made available to all board members prior to our meeting today. This report constitutes a record of business transacted by the Office of the Chancellor since the previous quarterly meeting of the board. Madam Chair, pending any questions, I recommend the board's approval of the report of interim action.
Thank you. Any questions for the Chancellor? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the report of interim action.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Regent White. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Varlin. Any discussion? If not, this simply requires a voice vote as well. All in favor of approving the Chancellor's interim action report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Regent Burdine, you had an audit committee meeting on March 7.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The audit committee met on regular session on 7 March 2023 to review and recommend approval of the following items: Comptroller's Office reports, federal audits, external reviews, and internal audit reports, system-wide internal audit updates, university updates, fiscal year 2023 internal audit plan revisions, new internal audit charters, and internal audit quality assurance self-assessments. As committee chair, I move that the board approve the report of the March 7th, 2023 meeting of the Audit Committee as presented.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion from the committee chair for approval of the audit committee minutes. May I have a second? Thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And a big thanks to Mike Batson and the team for their continued good work in audit. Thank you, Regent Burdine. Chancellor, you have an interesting report this morning, so take it away. I know folks will be interested to receive these updates.
All right, thank you so much. A couple of quick announcements. I would like to talk about President Roland Rayner, who announced his retirement in October of 2022, and his final day as president was February the 28th. Jeff Sisk, our former president of TCAT Jackson, currently the executive director of Economic and Community Development, and most recently serving as interim president at Murfreesboro, agreed to go and be our interim president at TCAT Memphis. So Jeff likes to wear lots of hats, and he's agreed to do that one more time for us. The board approved the search criteria for the president's position at TCAT Memphis at a special called meeting on October 31st, 2022. Regent Emily Reynolds has graciously agreed to chair the search, and fellow regents Nisha Powers and Mark George are serving on the search committee with faculty, staff, students, and community members. The search committee had their orientation meeting in November, and due to the holidays, we did extend the search, and the search committee met in February to consider the applications received. Virtual interviews were held last week. We are down to 2 finalists, and their on-campus interviews are scheduled for April 4th, with the expectation that we will have a new president starting by July 1st. Next, I would like to call on Dick Tracy to talk to us about the governor's most generous $1 billion that he has put into our budget. I'd like for the board to hear today an update on how we intend to handle these funds, the fact that we do have the capacity to handle these funds, and the wherewithal to make this happen. That has been a few of the comments that we've heard from some of our legislators as we've talked with them about keeping this in the budget, that some had, just didn't think we were capable of spending $1 billion. And I always say, you just don't know me very well. But today, Dick and his group are going to give us a great outline of how this is going to happen when it is approved by the legislature. So I'll turn it over to you, Dick.
All right, thank you, Chancellor. Yeah, we've been having those questions, and I guess the question I have is nobody's asked the question that I always get from the Chancellor is when somebody says you can't do it, their response should be, well, why can't you? Because people are telling us we can't do something, but they can't tell us why. We've been working on this project for quite some time, looking at the big picture for TCATs. We worked with F&A when we were putting together these projects, and our position has always been we don't want to ask for money in the budget that we can't spend and we can't get done quickly. So as we put these projects together, we looked at the needs, we looked at the schedules, we looked at the cost and how we could execute that. So we've been having conversations with the design community on their capacity, with the construction community on their capacity, and how we could put this together. We've looked at schedules on individual projects, and I'll get Jeff Holmes, our Director of Planning and Programming, and he can go into more detail about that. But basically, looking at these projects, we're looking at bundling these projects and talking to construction managers. We're looking at how we can, in what we've been doing most recently since the pandemic, we're doing early packages so we're doing construction while we're doing design. We're looking at buying materials early if there's long lead time items. And so if you look at a typical project, design on these projects probably going to be 6 to 8 months. Construction's probably going to be 12 to 20 months. So you're looking at, somewhere between 18 to 30 months to execute all these projects, which is pretty typical on whether you're doing 2 projects or 5 projects. We didn't look at it in the $1 billion. We looked at it in the workload. So basically that breaks down to about just under 30 projects, which is about 9 per grand division. And so it's not a huge amount for the industry to take on. It's not a huge amount for us to take on. But again, we're trying to figure out how we can be more effective in getting all our work done and talking to the industry. So I'd like to have Jeff to come up here and kind of explain the process we've been going through and how we're going to get these things scheduled and executed.
Thanks, Dick. Madam Chair, Chancellor, Regents, I'm Jeff Holmes. I've been in that position about a month, and what great timing, because I get to participate in this exciting, and I want to say Herculean effort, because it's really not, as Dick mentioned, you know, when you say $1 billion, that it's kind of like a big number, right? It should be big. But when you start to break that down and you look at, you know, kind of a frame of reference, actual construction dollars are just about $500 million. And you break that down into square footage, 1.2 million square feet. Still a big number, right? We got 3 grand divisions in the state. So we're operating from Upper East all the way to Mississippi, to Memphis. So that's going to be distributed across the state. So when you look at that, let's put it in a perspective that we are experiencing right now. We're sitting in this building. This building has a square footage. We're talking about building 4 of these buildings in each grand division of the state. That's the quantity of the square foot that we're looking at. Industry can absorb that. And as Dick mentioned, we're out informing private sector architects, designers, construction managers. They're giving us a really good read on the economy and the workload. And I'll tell you that the facilities department and TBR really has a huge database of projects. So, you know, the information and the projections that you use is based on experience and the number of projects that they process and they manage on a daily basis and yearly basis provides that information. So no one's surprised. We understand, you know, the cost of construction and of how that's been pretty volatile, understand that, and we have ways of mitigating that, and one of those is using construction management as a delivery method. And construction management, and we've been doing that for a number of years, but construction management simply brings the construction piece of the expertise onto the design team. So that way you can look at efficiencies, you can look at pre-ordering, long lead items, all those things that are necessary in order to expedite a project. So, and bundling projects, you know, we can group small projects into larger projects. We're looking at it through the lens of the private sector. And if we maintain that stance and what they, you know, arranging it to what would be efficient for them to execute, it's just really not, it's not anything unusual. And if you look at the capital projects that were distributed or infused into the private sector from the state last year, this is less than that. So it's really not as intimidating as it sounds. And we're in a good place because the master plan was recently completed for the TCATs. So when the budgets were developed, that produced that $1 billion, they were in pretty close proximity to today. So it has the latest information. It's informed by the latest data, and we're tracking that. And we're talking to all the presidents and thank them for their participation as we kind of get these packages ready to put on the street, so to speak, and invite our design teams across the states to become informed of these and project these. Everything's on a really good glide path right now, and I'm confident that we can deliver these projects. Subject to any questions.
How long do you have? I'm
Sure.
kidding. I've got several questions.
Okay.
So,
Get my pen out.
so what kind of construction are we doing on that? Well, let's start. What kind of projects are we doing? Expansions of existing TCATs? Are we doing new, total new construction on new sites? And I'm sure it's a combination of those, but can you give us a feel as to how all that shakes out?
Yes, sir. Yeah, as the chancellor's pointing out, these projects are in this brochure, and they're broken out into 3 categories. One of those categories are new sites. So these are new campuses moving into areas that we want to increase service to. The other category are additions to existing campuses. So may add a program, high bay space, auto tech or some program in an existing campus. And then the third category is a campus replacement. So we're basically replacing, the entire campus. Most of the facilities, 60% of the facilities are over 60 years old. And we know that the evolution of technology has changed. Just look in the past 5 years, past 10 years. A classroom or a lab space that designed 60 years ago does not meet the needs of today. You don't have enough power even in the classroom. If you were to walk into a 60-year-old classroom and sit down and try to use it, there's not enough power to operate computers, and the infrastructure that's needed. And then you can look at the lab space. So the types of spaces we're talking about are technical labs. So mechatronics, welding, machine tool, those type of programs, which typically in a lab, those are large open spaces. So these aren't small cut up spaces. These are kind of big box labs. We've done a number of these here recently in the past 4 years that have proven to be very successful with a big open lab layout. It offers a lot of flexibility as programs change and evolve, driven by industry. You don't have fixed walls, so you have a lot of flexibility to adapt to the emerging trends. Electrical vehicles, EV, is an emerging trend. Things that we will have to accommodate 5 years from now, we don't even know what that is. So the answer to that is to make these buildings adaptable very easily, so they can track with industry needs.
Mostly single story, any multi-story facilities?
There will be some two-story facilities. We're going to try, most of them preferred single story, and in most cases they will be single story. But again, the lab portion, and we look at these, we design them in pods, which the pod has a classroom and a lab combination as students move back and forth between the two, and then the faculty office. So these are pods. The lab space is a big steel structure, not steel on the exterior. It can have any type of exterior skin, but it's a big open space. So when we're looking at doing is setting kind of a template, a prototypical for that lab, for the lab space that accommodates anywhere from 4 to 5 lab functions within it. Opportunity, if we have a construction manager on board, we can go ahead and order that steel. So we can bundle 3 or 4. If this happens, we mentioned 7 campus replacements. So 7 locations are going to have these big open labs. Why not bundle that up, send it to one steel mill, and so they can set their lineup and produce 7 labs.
So are you all using in the design and pricing construction phase? Are you using design build, or are you competitively bidding it out to the subs, or are you bringing on your key subs and doing design build with it?
So we'll be using the construction management delivery method. So it's not the design build where the construction manager and the designer come to and are locked into one contract amongst themselves. We will solicit and award the design to a designer, and then we will do the same with a construction manager before the design is complete, so that they're both on the design team. However, they do have independent contracts with us, so they're not linked together with a contract, but they are on the same team. So that gives us the expertise from the construction manager very early on into the project. We don't envision waiting until the documents are finished. We want the expertise from the construction team to give us advice on materials, cost of materials, delivery times, long lead items that we can go ahead and order. And that's the beauty of the construction management delivery method, because you get everybody on the same team, and it offers opportunities to expedite schedule and watch the budget.
That was my key question. It's a huge difference between, we built the first ever design build structure, Citizens Plaza downtown, and it had come on the heels of some world-class disasters like the Performing Arts Center and the UT Stadium, basketball stadium and whatnot. And the state has, to my knowledge, every single major project within the state itself has used that concept. So I'm I'm encouraged.
Yes, sir. And it really lets, by having the designer and the construction manager kind of independent, they can pursue which project best fits their size, their region, their expertise. So we didn't want to assume that we're going to bundle those teams up together. We want the industry to drive that bundling and their partnership amongst them.
This is a very exciting opportunity for the state and for TBR. I just have a couple questions. And will you have a construction manager that's over all the projects throughout the whole state, or will they be different construction managers in different regions?
No, sir, there'll not be one that's over the whole state. So there'll be a number of construction managers that, as Dick mentioned, we're now looking at how many projects this will actually be as we kind of group projects together, anywhere from 14 to 18. So we wouldn't, and that was not to say that a construction manager wouldn't be running multiple projects. So there'll be multiple construction managers across the state. And hopefully, when we do have plans to make sure that you have small and large firms that can participate by the grouping of the projects. We have projects everywhere from $8 million to $100 million, depending on how you group them. So it really will allow the industry to absorb that based on the size of firm and region.
Yeah, I see West Tennessee has the largest piece of this. So being from Memphis, Tennessee, that's exciting. So my last question is, there's $1 billion spend, and you said $500 million, $500 million would be on construction. What are you going to do with the other half?
Well, it's almost 600 million. So kind of round my numbers up when I'm talking. But you have equipment. So
Okay, that's what I thought you'd say.
Equipment. So a lot of these emerging programs and then just how the programs have evolved. So there's a large line item for each of the locations for equipment. This equipment is highly specialized. Again, it evolves very quickly based on industry, so we're accommodating that within the budget, and that is in the $1 billion.
So that's about $500 a square foot for the construction.
Yes, sir. And that's what we're watching. So we are managing our budget. So as I talk to the presidents, we look at the program, we allocate the gross square foot, and we're designing, or we're basically doing the space program to match that gross square foot. And we have, and we're going to plan on executing this and be right on the money with the budget. However, realism knows that we have to have some safety factors in there. So we have a contingency in there. We are designing and programming to the bid target. And in addition to that, we have a contingency that'll kind of take on those unknowns. We have site development costs that we've looked at, so we've programmed in that. So we are planning on options. So we have course of action A, B, and C if in fact, in one area that the cost per square foot increases or one decreases in another area.
I think he's got a good handle on it.
Regent Powers.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Holmes, thank you for the, were you about to say something?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So Memphis is going to be going through a transition, and so I'm going to be watching very carefully how this goes because President Rayner is leaving us, and so we'll need some special TLC over there to make sure that things are in place. I do have a question. You've referred to the construction manager method. I want to make sure that that's construction manager at risk and not just construction manager being hired separately, but that the costs are being managed through the at-risk part.
That's a very good question, and thank you for asking that. So it will be a construction manager at risk.
Great.
So we get the expertise, but we also have skin in the game, so to speak. And it's everybody's pushing and rowing in the same direction. And we get the benefits of all of that, the construction side and the design team. So the designer can make, and the owner can make better decisions, and then we get the benefit of, the construction manager's invested in this. So he's not gonna, he's not sitting on the sidelines watching, train go down the track and the bridge is out, and hey, the bridge is out. He's on the train with us. So
Right.
we'll make sure the bridge is there before we get there.
That's great. So on that note, there was some discussion at the state level about CMAR. I think somebody had opined that might not be a proper method of delivery at one point. I know that that was referenced on a couple of projects we were working on in Memphis. I just want to make sure that that's been addressed at the state level and that that's,
I'm sorry, what was the question? Design build or?
no, CMAR, which is Construction Manager at Risk, that
Oh,
that
yeah.
process, at some point, the state had opined that that was not a proper methodology for public funds.
Yeah, I can speak on that.
Okay.
So we got approval through the state to do CM projects, probably been 20 years ago. And TBR's probably done, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 times the number of CM projects as opposed to all the other LGIs in the state government combined. It's something that we've been utilizing, and it is a CM at risk. And what we do is that we have a master contract with a CM, which is only basically pre-construction services. And so we can stop at that point if we want, and we're not obligated. They take on the at-risk portion. What we do is we develop the GMP when we finish CDs.
Okay.
You know, some people want to do it early. We figure the cost is the cost, right? If you try to do it early, they're going to pad those numbers. And so what happens is when we do a CM at risk, they bid the trade bids out. Part of the approval of getting the CM process done with the state was they wanted a cost component when we do an RFP. So they're given 30 points for the cost, and the costs are they have to basically bid their general conditions and their fee percentage when we do the bid in their bond. So that's 30 points of the cost. So we know what their general conditions are. Those carry on when we do the GMP. So those are identified as a line item. We get them to bid the trade bids. They show us what the trade bids are. They put the most qualified trade bid in there, and that's how they draft their GMP. So we see everything that they have in there, their general requirements, their general conditions, and their fee and how that's calculated. So we go through, in working with contractors, they're all going to do it differently. So we go through a process that we do a lot of evaluations in their GMP, and we hold them to that through the project. We do allow them to have a 3% contingency within their GMP but those could be for code. Anything that they miss, they have to pay for. And and we don't approve those dollars, but we monitor that. Right? And so a lot of that's done. So there have been bumps along the way because we've done so many, but that's gone real well for us. Like Jeff said, is we bring them on in design. They do their estimate independent of the designer. Those are completely different. We get them together, and then they have to line up and see what the differences are. They review the construction. We're asking them. We let them drive the control schedule. Jeff and I, as architects, we're not good at controlling time. We'll spend it all in design. So we ask them. They have to tell the designer when they have to have things done because we do a lot of early packages. And so once I turn them loose, the clock starts. I can't stop them because it costs me money. So if I do a site package, they got to be able to roll into the steel package. It's got to work that way for us. And so we go through that process. So we do early packages. What you'll see is we'll have a GMP established that may be $1 million on a $25 million project because we established the GMP only for that piece. We amend the GMP with the next package, but we're tracking the whole cost when we do the early package. So they say if the early package is $1 million, comes in $1.5 million, right, we got to figure out how we can make that adjustment before we move on to the next one. So we look at the whole project when we break these up. In looking at buying early materials, early equipment, what we've done is we issue a purchase order because I don't give them a notice to proceed. I don't want their contract doesn't start. There's no general conditions on top of that. We're buying switchgear early because it's a year out, right? So we make a decision to design how much power we're going to need, and we're still designing, but we make that decision, and we have to stick with that because we order that material. Same thing with steel. We can design the steel package, and like Jeff said, we can change the materials on the outside during the design, but once we develop that, we can change things on the inside, but we do that so that we can stay ahead of in construction. At the same time, we're continuing to design and do multiple bid packages.
Awesome. You covered everything I was going to ask. Thank you.
As you two can tell, there's a little expertise around this table, which is
Yeah,
excellent. So, Mr. White?
This is fascinating, but I love on page 7 here, the square footage. So you mentioned 1.2 million square feet. What's the amount of square feet that's represented that we currently have? Do you? I'm just trying to benchmark the 1.2 million versus what
For the
exists
TCATs,
right now.
I want to say, now this is going to, and this is some replacement of
Yeah,
square
right.
footage. So I think we're around 8 million square feet, something
Okay.
like 8 or 9 million square feet. And like I say, this is going to replace a lot of buildings. They'll be a little bit bigger, but a lot more efficient. And let me touch on Jeff. He's only been here a month recently. But Jeff, when he worked, before he left working for me and went to work for the governor, and what his expertise was for the board was, when he was a consultant, was that he worked on TCATs. I had him working specifically on TCATs, working with a master planner and looking at how we could make TCATs more efficient. So he talks about the modulars and the pods. Those were concepts he came up with when we started doing, when we did Nissan, when we did Clarksville, and so he's putting together basically design guidelines that we're going to hand to the designers so that we're not going to be reinventing the wheel 15 times, right? Because we know basically what the needs are. So we'll give that to them along with the program. So what we're going to do is we'll take this will get funded in July. In July, we will be going to the subcommittee of the Building Commission following the Building Commission meeting to approve these projects and requesting designer selections. We started that process ahead of the only one. I think there are other agencies that are doing it now. So we will get designers under contract in August. We will start designing in August. What our goal is to start construction, breaking ground on some of these next spring. I mean, but that's the way we've always done these projects. So that's our goal. And again, with the expertise that Jeff built when he was working with us as a consultant, he can put that together so that we're not spending a lot of time on that. We can expedite the design and how we're going to construct them, so we have a lot more control over that.
And we talk a little bit about architect selection when we've got scale of projects, but also the scope is very different, right? I mean,
That's correct.
$15 million project replacing a building in Chattanooga, as opposed to full-blown campus replacements and
Yes.
stuff like that.
So right now, architects and engineers, we have open contracts with about 100 different firms across the state because of the work that we do, right? So we know the capacity of most of the firms. The building commission requires, there's a process on designer selections. There is up to 20 million, we can do it as a letter of interest. So we ask them specific questions, they respond, we evaluate those, we send the top 3 to the building commission, and they select the designer. What the building commission is looking at doing when they're looking at us, the LGIs, UT, and general government, they're looking at trying to make sure the work's spread across the state. We look at that, one of their requirements is that they look at the grand divisions. East, architects do east, middle do middle, unless there's nobody qualified to do the work. There are people qualified to do our work in all the grand divisions. We're in those conversations. Jeff, I'm talking to some, Jeff is talking to some, again, to see what their capacity is to be able to take these on, right? So we know who the designers are that can do our work across the state and that we feel are the best qualified. And we'll reach out to them, and whether they submit or don't submit, and then we will evaluate all those submittals and send those to the building commission for approval.
Yeah, and just so the board's aware, Jeff, whom we're so fortunate to have on this team, is an architect himself, so which I know will resonate with you and your family background as well, Regent Want. But Chancellor, you may want to mention, he's had a modest, when Dick says he went to work for the governor, he had a modest little job.
He did have a modest little job, serving as the Adjutant General for the Garden Reserve over the entire state. And when you put together a team with the history and the knowledge and the just pure brilliance of Dick Tracy, who was smart enough to go out and hire a general to execute this plan, I can assure you that we are in the best shape of any system across the country to execute this money and to do these projects. This doesn't shake their boots at all. And so when I hear people that have any concern about it, all I have to do is point to these 2 men and say, we have the power to take care of this. So that, again, I thank you for listening to them. I also want to point out that the book you have in front of you is what influenced the governor's decision to put $1 billion into the budget for us. This is the master plan that we've been working on for 5 years. This is not something that the governor said, hey, I think I'll give y'all $1 billion, go make up something and put it down, and then this is what we'll do. This has been a lot of work over a long period of time. It would have been less time, but COVID did slow us down just a little bit because the architect that designed our master plan actually went and visited every one of those colleges. He talked with community, he talked with industry, so that we know the programs that we're putting in are what is needed today. And as you heard Dick and Jeff both say, this is also for the future. We are building for the next 60 years of what TBR is going to look like. That's why we're calling it a generational investment in Tennessee. And this governor truly gets what we're doing and picked that up and put that money into the budget. I will also quickly point out that last year the LGIs and UT did receive $1.3 billion, and no one seemed to have a blinking eye over that. So just to let y'all know, we're actually getting less than they got for their 7 colleges last year that we're getting for our 40 colleges this year.
So,
Regent Kestner?
question, thank you. So this money's gonna get spent over, it's gonna span 3 years. And so
Yes, sir. Let me point out though, one quick thing too, is that again, people were saying, well, why didn't he divide it up into 3-year chunks? We have to have the money in the budget to encumber these companies to
Right.
go out and do the work that you heard these gentlemen talk about. So if we didn't already have it, we're not allowed to spend money we don't already have in the budget.
Only the federal government.
Only the federal
Only the
government can do
feds.
that.
I was gonna make that point, Commissioner.
So that's why we needed it to all be put in at one time and not, again, there was a lot of talk about, well, can't you just divide that up?
So the natural question that comes to mind is how fluid, in other words, might some of these projects get adjusted or change or go away and a new one gets added? I mean, I would assume there's some fluidity within
There's
the master plan.
A little bit, but not a lot. The projects are being funded by the
Based on,
projects.
this adds to like 953 million if I did the math right, so I get that. Do we have to, deal with financial structures, or is that all happening at the state level and they just give us the
Would
money?
you like to introduce Angela?
Yes, another one of our recent people, we stole Angela from FNA. We had to wait because she was helpful in getting this project put together, and I've been working with her for a long time, so she goes to, but she can explain kind of the process of what our flexibilities may or may not be in these projects and how the projects will, how the funding will happen over that period of time.
It's nothing like stealing one of the best people FNA had working for them to come help us make sure that we are doing this appropriately.
Thank you, Chancellor. Angela Scott. I've been with the Board of Regents since December the 1st, but I have 18 years experience with the state, most recently 10 years with the Department of Finance and Administration. The way that these projects will be funded in what's called the Appropriations Act, once that's approved by the General Assembly and the Governor, the projects are approved, as Chancellor said, on an individual project basis, and there will be X amount of funding tied to each of those projects. The money actually, it's cash money that's in the state coffers, but it's set aside in the Capital Projects Fund, and it's earmarked and can't be spent on anything else unless there's different legislation that's passed. One of the key things is getting these projects approved through the Building Commission, and that solidifies that appropriation is tagged for that project and moving forward, and we can enter into those contracts with the designers and the construction team.
So if the total budget for a project moves either up or down 5% based on the guaranteed max and whatnot, that's not a problem, I assume, is what you're.
We have contingencies built in to our estimates for the projects. Also, there is a little flexibility depending on the scope changes or just the design process. So we can fluctuate a little bit, not great amounts, but I think we've already, with the master planning and with Jeff's programming efforts, I think we're pretty solid on what those needs are and
So
working our best to stay within those budgets.
You don't have the rigidity of a project-specific bond issue that only had a certain amount of money, and that's absolutely a limit, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
One quick one. Just, if we take a second and talk about, I mean, you mentioned the building commission several times. how heavy-handed a role, and how much involvement are they required to have? Where is state architect in all this? Just talk to me about
Okay.
the regulatory aspect
Okay.
of state government and
Yeah.
how it impacts this.
All right. So the State Building Commission oversees all the state projects, and we have a great relationship with working with them. And it's made up of the three constitutionals, the speaker, lieutenant governor, the commissioner of FNA, and it's chaired, the governor, but he doesn't come. So the process is the projects are approved. We take our projects in July. All the projects we get that are appropriated have to be approved by the building commission. So we set ourselves up, and that's what Angela does. She gets everything ready. There are multiple meetings we have before we go to the building commission. We will take all those for approval at the building commission. The building commission also approves the designer selection. That's done at the executive subcommittee of the building commission, which meets basically 2 weeks after the building commission. They handle that. They also handle land transactions. The subcommittee is actually the three constitutionals and the commissioner of FNA makes up the subcommittee of the building commission. So we've been working on these projects. So some of these projects require property transfers, acquisitions. We've been working on those. So we're taking those to the subcommittee now. TCAP Paris, Carter County, Greenville. There are some other projects. So we start that process, and what we tell the people, and these are lands that are being donated to us. So we basically tell them that if we don't get it funded, we'll give you the property back. So we try to stay ahead of everything so that we got that going on while we're doing the design work. So the subcommittee, the building commission will approve the project. We will, if we have to make any if we add money, do anything, we have to go back to the building commission to increase the budget. But usually in a new building, the next process is we go to the building commission for early design presentation. So we show them what the building's going to be. We go over the budget. We're in the schedule, the budget, and then after that, that's the only two really requirements that we have with the building commission. So the building commission we factor the time in, and there's really no impact on the schedule. We know when we have to go. We know what have to be done. And like I say, the only time that we may go back is if we adjust the budget, we add money. One of the things in the almost $1 billion, there are some other line items in there. I think there's about $9 million for maintenance, and these for projects that are existing projects that we're adding money to. There's some additional money in there for some for expansion of or increase in budgets of current projects that we have going on. And there's some money in there for doing some renovations in some of the smaller campuses. So there's other money in this besides the larger projects in those things. There's a lot of flexibility in what we can do with those dollars.
So is it, at any point, is the state architect involved? Are they reviewing the projects? Does it require any approval from?
So the state architect, they're involved, and we submit it to them to go to the building commission. So we go through all that with them. We work with them throughout the year. We give them a heads up what's coming, what we're looking at doing. The things that Jeff and I are talking about, obviously there's some things that state's never done, and we go to them and say, we're going to do these things. We're letting you know these are things, and do you have any questions or concerns? We submit the early design presentation. So we submit everything to the state architect for the building commission agenda. So we work with them. We have meetings with them at least 3 times every month, because we're at the building commission we have something at the building commission about every month of the year. And the subcommittee.
Anybody else?
Last follow-up on that question that he asked about the state architect. So are the plans required to be reviewed by anybody, or how?
I think the policies, in the building commission policy says they're submitted to the state architect but they basically, a lot of that, they delegate back to us. We basically, they were going to ask us the question. We submit them the design, and they have some questions. They don't review and approve any of the questions are to them. They're looking at what we submitted in the building commission, which was, it's the building for nursing, and it's got this in there. And they're just comparing it to what we took to the building commission for approval.
which is great that you don't have to go through that and then have that slow it down. But at the same time, do you feel like you have enough staff on your team that those plans are getting reviewed to some level to ensure that there are,
Yes,
the
yes.
errors and omissions are mitigated and those kinds of
So
things?
we're getting ready to start our fifth project manager. So technically we have 5 project managers. I kind of got Angela listed as a project manager. And the reason is because even beyond this, we still have to oversee projects for the LGIs that are funded with school bonds. Our requirement though is more financial. So that's something that I needed, and this one of the things the chancellor asked me if I could do, is how could I take that away from the project managers who are architects that I have on staff, because that's a financial issue. So I kind of said, okay, on these, Angela, you're the project manager, because they're going to be submitting we got to approve pay apps and that for those school bond projects. So what the project managers do is they work with the architects, and monthly meetings, we go through the design. The CM, when we bring them on board, they're looking at the same thing. So we have a lot of people looking at that. He'll be managing projects, I manage projects, and we don't really have any boundaries in our office. It's whatever it takes to get the work done. As an architect, as Jeff is an architect, we know how to manage those. And so, I mean, we've been working pretty well. We've not been having, design bust, plan bust, because we do evaluate that. And then we have, on the construction side, I have construction reps in the field. They go to every progress meeting, they approve the pay requests. So once it gets into construction, the project managers hand that off and go back. They're involved in looking at things that obviously affect the design, but there's a handoff at that point.
Thank you.
So walk me through, building commission approves $20 million building.
Correct.
Right? That building, because the world's unpredictable right now, runs 24. Do you have the flexibility going in, for example, from the $300 million of funds that are committed towards equipment, to draw those funds down to cover overages?
That is correct. So, and we've done that before, just in the natural scheme of things. And the question is that I could take 100% of the equipment money and put it into construction. I'd go back to the building commission, adjust the budget. Their question is going to be how you're going to equip the building, right? So then we have to have, now what the TCATs do a lot of times is a lot of these will be moving equipment, right? And then they work with industry. A lot of the equipment we get basically donated because we're training on equipment that the industry wants us to train on. So in that process, as we're designing the building, we're also doing, and TCATs are different than working with the universities for the most part, for equipment, community colleges, because our equipment is more than computers, desks, and chairs. Yeah. We have to know what that equipment is, because we have to develop an infrastructure to handle that. We have to make sure it fits in the space, right? And so we start that process, and during that process, the TCATs are also talking to industry about those donations of equipment, what equipment we can reuse. And so during that process, we may be adjusting the equipment line because we don't need that money. We won't move it until we know that we may need those funds.
So don't take offense to the next question, because I have the utmost confidence in y'all. But in my first 7 months in my new job, we had a school go 30% over budget that cost $18 million cash. And then our community is still talking about building a stadium that is 50% more expensive than it was thought to be 9 months ago. So let's say you end up in more of a catastrophic situation, and the building commission pushes back on you drawing down too many of the funds that were committed in a less specific way to equipment. Is there a hierarchy in these projects? I mean, I would be most comfortable if I were a TCAT president and mine was one of the first ones to come out of the ground.
So the projects are approved. These were all listed in the budget as line items. So it'd be difficult. You'd have to go back, like Angela said, and revise because if I got a project for Paris, that project is in the budget for Paris. So it's difficult to do that. Again, there's some other money that we have in there. I think it's about $48 million that we can draw against, that we can make up the difference. But Jeff talked about, we're looking at a construction cost about $450 a square foot for a TCAT. It's not been that long ago. I was building TCATs for $200 a foot. Right. I think Nissan was at $225 a foot. So we've been tracking those things, and we track that through TCAT. We've been bidding out projects nonstop. we never stopped during COVID. We ran into a lot of bumps scheduling that, so we're prepared for that.
Let me add something. Sure. Yeah, so, just to illustrate what we're tracking, and I mentioned earlier, as Dick mentioned, there's kind of safety, there's courses of action built into each TCAT. So we are designing to the bid target. That gross square foot is designed to a bid target. And if we start to go over, and we will, what we try to do is we try to project the cost per square foot. And then if it goes over, we have a safety factor. We have a contingency that we're not touching, setting over to the side. It comes in at $460 a square foot, we go to the contingency and pull from it. If that doesn't work and we use all the contingency, we look at equipment. I mean, sometimes, you know, we got line items for all equipment, but maybe we need to take $100,000 out of the equipment and use some remaining equipment, the more the new equipment, and replace that later to get that safety factor in there. But it's an order of precedence. So we go to contingency. We also go to renovation. So a lot of space there'll be some migration within existing buildings. Well, maybe we have a pot of money for that. So our focus is new construction, bricks and mortar. So we may take some of the cost for renovation, use the classrooms, use the lab like it is now, in order to buy that new construction. So
there is that hierarchy. I guess there's going to be a prioritization, push comes to shove,
yes, sir.
on the new builds.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, so that hierarchy, and I track this along with the presidents. I send it to them every Monday, but we get to look at it. And so we're looking at that square footage, and I can tell what project is exceeding $450 a square foot. And we can hypothetically, and if we're designing efficient, and there are efficiencies in the design. So I give credit to the TCAT presidents and the faculty and the staff, because we did some very innovative stuff that has made our buildings more efficient, but based on training devices and things like that. So we've saved square footage, and every time we get into that, kind of looking at, let's don't do it like we used to, let's see how we can become more efficient, we have the opportunity to save square footage. So maybe sometimes we can harvest that. You know, we're not going to just design, 35,000 square feet because it's there. It's going to be based on need, and that's really the fun part of getting in there and seeing what they need. But we track this multiple times a day, and so we can see the effects. We could plug in at $475 a square foot right now. It populate all the square footage for all the TCATs, and we know how deep we'll have to execute those other courses of action.
Well, General, 30 months from now, I may be recruiting you down to Southeast Tennessee.
Okay? Yes, sir. Hey, this is fun stuff. This is fun stuff. This is awesome. And I tell you, the synergy when you're sitting with an instructor that knows industry, because that's their client, and then you're looking at how to design, how to make that space, better. It's like glass. We put glass in machine tool in Smyrna. And, that was like, we've never did that before. You got shards of metal flying around, and we did it, put it in the glass, put a robotics in a big glass lab. It's exciting stuff, and you can see those big robots moving around and stuff, and it's just the energy in those big open spaces is just unbelievable. And thanks to, the TCAT presidents will attest to that. Those that have this new concept have experienced transitioning one lab to another use and how effective it was. And so we're constantly learning. We're a dynamic learning organization. We're not going to get stuck on how we did it 5 years ago, because we'll be left behind. And so anyway, thank you for letting me elaborate a little bit on that.
Thank
One
you.
question.
Oh, yeah.
All of these facilities are being built to meet customer demand, which are major employers and existing industry. How was that data developed to make sure that we're meeting the demands of industry? And is that flexible? For instance, if Chattanooga or Jackson locates a new
I love that
several,
question.
so it's
I love
very
that
flexible.
question. So, because that's what I do. That's my job, is to work with the faculty and the presidents to kind of envision what that industry needs. So you take, and we've talked a lot about this, EV, emergency vehicles. What does that mean for the mechanic shop? What does it mean for the body of, all this stuff? We're talking to industry. We're talking to Ford. We're talking to Nissan. We're talking to VW. We're understanding what type of skills that worker will need, and that's what it will design, that's what will drive the square footage required for this lab. And some of it's unknown, but it's a collaborative effort. So we're not doing it in a bubble. I mean, you know, we are really relying on everybody to inform. And there's a number of different things that are trending, and that we have to kind of guess what that would look like. But to mitigate, you know, building walls, we just have a big open space. So if you need more square footage, you just kind of take more square footage. So it's really fun to do that. It's fun to explore new things like EV. You know, what does that look like? So many different components, and then all these other new jobs and opportunities. It's really exciting. I could talk for hours. We'll
But
go up there and look at
regretfully, we don't
drawings.
have hours.
You have time for me to make one comment?
Quick.
Wait, nah.
Okay. Okay. We might get back around, but there's more exciting things to come. So Jeff, thank you. We're so proud you're part of the team, and Dick knows how we all feel about him.
Upstairs if you want to come talk to us.
Okay, and this has been an incredibly great use of time. This is the very kind of discussion we need to have more of. But I know you have more to come as well. So let's move on and
All right, our
keep the
next
pace.
big topic, our other big whale that we're
Yes.
working with is Ford. As many of you are aware, Ford did host a celebration last week at the Blue Oval City Industrial Complex to show guests where their construction progress is going and what Ford will be delivering with their all-new electric truck and batteries. And we know that this truck is not just the Lightning. This truck is more than the Lightning that they have out now. I've asked Dr. Reed and Dr. Sisk and Dr. McMillan to give you an update on what we've been doing over the last 2 years with Ford. This is not a new project for us either. This is something that we started with day one when ECD knew that this was coming to Tennessee. We began the conversations with Ford as to what the curriculum and the training needed to look like and how did we need to get prepared. So Dr. Reed, I'm going to turn it over to you to let them know where we are in this phase of development.
Great, thank you. And great question for Reynolds, Chancellor Guidance, and members of the board. I'm really happy to be here to share an update with you around Blue Oval City and the great relationship that we have with Ford, and to share some of the synergy and the planning that we have. And it helps if I have the mic on. So in sharing some of the synergy and the planning that we have, not only for our new TCANT campus at the mega site, but as well as the programs that we're developing to support the actual Ford plant. I also have Jeff and Heath with me who will share some highlights as well. But first I want to share, since we did the announcement back in September 2021, TBR has developed a workforce development strategic plan that is in alignment with TBR's 3 key policy pillars around open access, completion, as well as community and workforce development. Each of you as board members, you have a folder in front of you with that strategic plan, and I will be highlighting some goals with that. I also want to make sure the board is aware that TBR is constantly engaged with our Ford partners. We meet with them each week as part of our communication strategy and developing our planning together. We also talk to our state partners weekly, and we meet with our Kentucky partners monthly. We also have a space at TCAT Jackson for Ford leadership, so sometimes those conversations are even daily. Based on the feedback of that Ford relationship, TBR is well on its way to achieving the goals highlighted in our strategic plan. I wanted to highlight some of those briefly for you. In the area of open access pillar, our 3 key goals in that space that we're moving forward on is dual enrollment programs at regional high schools to be ready for fall 2023. Essentially, those programs will be in the areas of industrial maintenance and mechatronics, and that will also allow us to scale up our opportunities and meet the needs of the Ford plant. You will hear in a later presentation on dual enrollment around the significant increase in dual enrollment in the western region of the state, which really supports our synergy around dual enrollment planning. The other area under open access is that we have developed credit programs to be placed at the Blue Oval campus for fall 2024. Those are being developed and getting ready for implementation. as well as working with Ford on apprenticeships that will be developed by Ford's timeline. In the area of completion, we are working at a goal of a technical middle college. We have also allocated space for adult ed programs as an equity strategy, and we're looking at transfer pathways developed specific to electric vehicle manufacturing, which is being piloted out of Chattanooga State right now. It's just really important that you know there is constant engagement, and we feel like we're in a great space in terms of our planning. The other third pillar I wanted to highlight for you all is community and workforce development, which is where we have developed electric vehicle related curriculum at the TCATs, the community colleges, as well as being developed for delivery in our high schools for that fall 2023. So again, we have developed new programs for Ford. We have a new campus being built at BOC, and we have hired our campus administrator for that new TCAT campus as elements of that pillar. Next slide, please. TBR staff, the Ford team, and SK Innovations are working together to ensure we have the right curriculum for that TCAT Blue Oval City campus, both credit and workforce training opportunities. Again, Heath and Jeff are the tip of the spear in that planning, and we're glad to support them through the Office of Academic Affairs. Here we talked a bit about the dual enrollment and the opportunities that we have already developed in terms of that curriculum and scaling that up starting this fall as well. We are also looking at skills assessments. Heath will talk a bit more about that when he comes up, but part of that is the early onboarding of Ford employees coming on board at the BOC campus and providing those early skills training strategies. We're also, again, working on principal apprenticeships in electrical maintenance, mechanical maintenance, and tool and die. And again, Ford is driving that particular timeline, but we're happy to work with them. We also are ensuring there are articulation agreements. The board has heard the great work that we've done to really be progressive around TCAT to community college articulation agreements. We have recently just scaled that up to 30 new agreements between those. Particular to Ford, we'll be looking at more localized articulation agreements that can offer even more credit so that when students graduate from TCAT programs and continue to community college to meet the needs of Ford's plant, they're getting substantial credit as a part of that transfer process. And as well, I want to highlight some of our work that all of our TBR colleges in that Western region, TCATs and community colleges as well, are all part of the planning process and receiving information and feedback in there. One thing I did want to highlight is that Ford did have us look at their over 1,200 points of knowledge, skills, and abilities for their competencies to be able to support the Ford plant. We did a gap analysis of our TCAT and community college curriculum and found that we already had 90% coverage of the needs of the competencies that they had. To meet that gap, we have since added outcomes to our electrical vehicle production technical programs, and we're able to move that forward as well. So again, there's constant communication and planning in this partnership with Ford, and we feel like we're in a great place to meet the outcomes that you see there in your booklet. We have some additional highlights. At this time, I'm going to invite Dr. Jeff Sisk and Heath to talk more about the planning timeline and some other opportunities with Ford. Next slide.
Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, members of the board, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I've been told I have to go fast, so I'm going to try to go really fast. So just to expound a little bit on what Dr. Reed has said, some of the things we're working on, I know we've belabored this point about the apprenticeships, but some on the electrical, mechanical, and tool and die. But one of the things that we're waiting on from Ford is who's going to sponsor these programs. So you know, when you think about apprenticeship programs, you have the opportunity as an employer to sponsor apprenticeship programs. So we are talking best through how that would work and what would be the most efficient and effective way to do that. So also we're looking to understand what would best fit Ford, whether that would be a time-based, a hybrid, or a competency program as we continue to develop. What I will say, in the development of these programs, competencies and RTI have already been identified with Ford to meet their needs. So also on programming capacity, a little more on what Dr. Reed has said about we have developed the electric vehicle production technician program. And that program is not so much about EV repair. That program is to help employee be ready to build an EV in a highly automated environment. That allows them also to do a lot of their own autonomous maintenance. So, and this, keep in mind, this program was created in conjunction with Ford's Workforce Development Team. The next thing we've done is a crosswalk in all of West Tennessee on all the technical programs at the TCATs in the community college to Ford's occupations. And also, we have been working to increase mechatronic and industrial maintenance program offerings at our existing and new campuses. One example there is the TCAT in Bartlett with a new mechatronics program. We have increased capacity at TCAT Jackson on our industrial maintenance integrated automation program. And also, as we've increased that capacity in our traditional programs, we are also working to increase that capacity at dual enrollment. We have been consulting with our regional high schools as they look forward to their innovative high school model grants, consulting with them on programs that they're going to develop at their high schools to ensure that the equipment and the skills and the occupations align with Blue Oval City, with the Blue Oval City project. And then also, as we continue the expansion of our dual enrollment, we're working to ensure that all of these align with the high school graduates to ensure they're prepared with foundational knowledge needed for the occupations for Ford and BOSK, as well as their suppliers. Also, I've worked very closely with the Department of Labor and Ford to help define the occupations and how the state allocated OJT dollars can be used to fund onboard training. And then lastly, facility, we've worked continually with Ford on the space and program planning. This includes space program planning for Ford, BOSK, and suppliers as well. We've worked on equipment requirements, equipment specifics for that. And we are working with Ford and BOSK to ensure that we've got branding in the TCAT that highlights Ford, BOSK, and their partners as well. So that's about as fast as I could go, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sis. So thank you.
Now, Heath, I want to make sure in going fast,
Yes.
though, you didn't leave something out that you really wanted to tell the board.
I don't think so. And I probably should have asked for questions. So.
Anything from the team? Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Reynolds, members of the board, Chancellor Tidings, thank you. Good morning, and what a great event last night. Thank you for supporting that. I had my aviation campus coordinator from Memphis there last night. He was just in awe. I don't think he's ever done anything like that before. It was incredible, so thank you for that. We talk about Heath being the tip of the spear. One thing I don't think people realize about Heath McMillan, first of all, we hired him away from Northeast 8, Region Burnine. Heath is a journeyman millwright and a journeyman welder. He's been through 2 different apprenticeship programs. So when he's talking about apprenticeships and workforce development, that is a subject matter expert right there. We're very fortunate to have over at TCAT Jackson. One thing I want to emphasize is, re-emphasize what Dr. Reed talked about, is our conversations with Ford. She gave you the monthly breakdown, the weekly breakdown, and literally Ford's North American Training and Development Manager has an office on a TCAT Jackson campus. And those are daily conversations sometimes. Our primary point of contact working with Ford is their workforce development team. That's headed by Liliana Ramirez. And so if you saw the Blue Oval City Live event, Liliana was on stage with Jim Farley, who's the CEO of Ford, and Governor Lee. So that kind of tells you where she ranks in the infrastructure there. And Chancellor Tidings, I don't want to misquote you, but I think you shared with me that last time you talked to Liliana, she says she's very happy with the work that we're doing at TBR and kind of the epicenter there in West Tennessee. Liliana's team includes Andy Bianco, who I just previously mentioned, Mike Nemeth, and Lisa Rencinelli. So those are great conversations. And we just had 2 more Ford meetings pop up on our calendar this afternoon on the drive home. So that's what we do. There's a lot of talk about capacity. So if you think about capacity, I want to hijack. I'm not an economist. I'm an old IT guy from way back in the day. I'm not an economist, but I want to hijack an economic term.
basically elasticity of demand. And the definition of that, it's a measure of how much the quantity demanded of a good or service changes in response to a change in its price or other factors. So in this case, the good is skilled labor, and that factor is Blue Oval City announcement, which happened 18 months ago. We have a workforce pipeline in place. The icing on that pipeline is going to be this Blue Oval City campus. It's going to be the epicenter of a lot of things going on. And you have in your packets there a copy of the workforce development strategic plan for that. And it kind of shows how that campus is going to serve as the epicenter for the entire West Tennessee region as we support Ford. So the elasticity part, the workforce pipeline is in place. Just like Ford is going to have to work multiple shifts to meet their production quotas for this next truck, we stand ready to work multiple shifts at our campuses as well to push out that skilled labor that Ford needs. We just need more raw material. And Ford is an incredible partner on generating interest in the community, getting folks excited about coming to work at Blue Oval City. And we can put them in that workforce pipeline wherever they need to be to skill them up for the particular job that they're looking for. Heath and Dr. Reed handled everything that I wanted to cover. You've got the early skills training strategy in one side of your folder. You've got a copy of the workforce development strategic plan. That's a working document that we update as needed. I updated it last night to reflect that that's not going to be an F-150 Lightning that they're building at the plant. Jim Farley said last week the code name is T3. Trust the truck. So that's what we're looking at. So Vice Chair Reynolds, I stand ready to answer any questions. Dr. Reed or Heath as well.
Thank you. Trust the truck sounds like a good country song. So, Kyle and Dr. Smith, questions for you guys. Kyle, because you're living it every day. Dr. Smith, you too are living it every day with us, but you also have that great West Tennessee knowledge. Are you feeling comfortable, not just about everything you've heard here and what you know we're doing, but what's the conversation out there? Are we kind of meeting expectations? Give us any feedback that's helpful.
Yeah, great question. I'll say I am personally, and so my job at the Jackson Chair, I'm president CEO. Our organization, we recruit new industries there. We have never been as busy as we are now. We're having to slow down projects that are looking at coming to our area just so we can get to know them better. We've never been in that situation before. I am very comfortable in my role at the chamber of what's happening now, but I'm afraid too many folks, and it's not just this organization because we don't know, it's everyone in the region and across the state, we underestimate what's about to happen. We're focused on 6,000 jobs. There are billions of dollars more capital investment coming, thousands of more jobs that will equal what's already there. So when Jeff started bringing up capacity, that is not a concern yet. I think it's just something we all need to be aware of, is that what we're doing for Ford, we're going to hit that demand. But what is happening concurrently with suppliers, and then 4 to 5 years when Ford, the site, they can double on site. They're not building this plant just for 6,000 employees. You'll have 10 to 15,000 people on site by 2030. Then in communities like Jackson, Memphis, and others, these suppliers, they don't have a choice. We're in the economic development business. It's rare where you start. We have industrial parks in Jackson and West Tennessee that we're going to look up 6 to 12 months from now. We're going to almost be at capacity. And so these companies have to be there. And so I think that's something long term we have to look at, is that, yes, we're doing great now, but concurrent with that, we have to plan for everything else that's coming, and it's a lot.
You're going to have a job for a long time.
I hope so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Smith?
Well, a little bit of history when I make this next reference. I've had two tours of duty in West Tennessee. And in both of those, one of my community partners was Kyle Spurgeon. We have a relationship going back over 30 years. And I have huge confidence in in what he said. I agree exactly with what Regent Spurgeon said here. What I see is that Blue Oval City happens to be the particular focus we have right now. But when we do this right, it is the national model that creates future Blue Oval cities. When Tennessee has already jumped to, I think, 4th in the nation in manufacturing, who would have thought of that 30 years ago when we were losing manufacturing jobs right and left, and primarily because we have a long history in Tennessee of undereducating our workforce so that we could sell that cheap labor to manufacturing. And that was the story of the 80s and the 90s. So here is an opportunity in which we sell a post-secondary educated workforce to meet the kinds of high-tech demands for even the beginning jobs in these places. So it's really exciting to have this opportunity, because we talk about the THEX having a transformational moment. This is a manufacturing transformational moment for Tennessee as well. And it's very, very exciting to hear what you're saying here and how thoughtful you've been about the planning process. That's waiting for the shoe to drop. Silence. It's the scaling it, because as Regent Spurgeon said, that 6,000 and the multiplier that I hear Ford using is 6, so that's 36,000 jobs. And with all those suppliers, and it's going to be a real challenge given the population in the area to meet the kinds of the needs, because for the last decade or so, population has been declining throughout West Tennessee. Poverty rates are higher in West Tennessee than they are in other parts of the state. Here's an opportunity to overcome those as well, but that's going to take a huge lift.
It's an exciting time though, right? Opportunities
no
and
question.
challenges, yeah, as you said, transformational. So, no, thanks for that perspective.
It's good to still be alive to live through it.
Exactly, exactly. We look forward to it.
And Vice Chair Reynolds like to add, the DCAT master plan that Jeff and Dick were just talking about is going to add to that capacity as well. So I can give you one little example of DCAT Jackson, but out of time. But the DCAT master plan is going to help us on the capacity side of West Tennessee as well. And we think, I'm an old Army officer. I was not a 2-star general like Jeff was, but we plan tactically and strategically, right? So yeah, 3 to 6 years down the road, I got dual enrollment kids coming in as high school freshmen, and they're going to hit the pipeline and be ready to go to work in 3 or 4 years. And so, but what are you going to do for the next 6 to 9 to 12 months? That's where the early skills training strategy comes in. That's where the multiple shifts, kind of the elasticity of our pipeline, second and third shifts as we build up that capacity and that infrastructure.
Thanks, everybody, for your perspectives. That, again, a very valuable conversation. And to Kyle, thanks for all you're doing in the region. It's exciting. Chancellor, what else?
I'm just going to thank my team for giving us the update on Blue Oval City, and just again to put a exclamation point on what they're doing. This has been a true partnership with Ford, and so please, if you're out in the communities, make sure that everyone understands we are working closely with Ford. There's been some conversation that maybe Ford wasn't playing as well as they should, but they are playing extremely well with us. And so I want to make sure our entire board understands and knows that. And then back to our building project, just please, everybody you see, ask them to vote for our $1 billion. Those are my final points.
All good points. All right, everybody, thank you all very much. Chancellor, thanks for a great report. We have no unfinished business to take up today, so we will move to our consent agenda for new business. We have two policy revisions rather, and one new policy approval in front of you. You will recall we were briefed on these three items at our committee chairs meeting earlier this month, and all three, of course, have been in our materials. Before I call for a motion, though, on these three, does anyone have questions around academic retention and readmission at TCATS, the revisions on our councils, most of which was just to bring us up to speed from our Focus Act transition, and third of all, the new policy on mass communications? If there are no questions or comments, we will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you,
Second.
Miles, and a second from Regent Hooper. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And now to another favorite part of what we do here today, our informational reporting. And we begin, of course, with an important update, a legislative update from Kim McCormick. She hit some highlights for us on May 7, but in this rapidly moving world, a lot can change between March 7 and March 30.
Yes. Well, good morning, Vice Chair, Chancellor, members of the board. I know we're in a hurry, but I do want to take a minute personally to just thank our team, my team, for everything they've done over the past 3 days, and also the other offices who helped volunteer. Thank you all so much. I think they did a beautiful job. It was just gorgeous. And I am going to quickly, in just a moment, go through the bills that we're tracking. We did a presentation for the President's Tuesday. It's changed since then because we had committees meet yesterday. So, in fact, in the Senate, there were 33 bills that we were tracking just in education alone. So I'll go through those. Brian is actually going to go through the next to last bill, and then I'm going to do the last bill. But first, I want to go back to what the Chancellor was saying about the legislature. When the budget first came out, the governor's office had seen everything, the master plan, they had studied it, they knew how much work went into it. So they, I think, felt very confident in what they put into the budget. The legislature, the General Assembly, did have questions, and rightly so, that's their job. They're supposed to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So not only did they have questions about, can you spend the money, but programmatically, do you have the ability, do you have the people in place to be able to train people? Do you know what programs you need? So those were the questions we were being asked. So in the beginning, to deal with the issue of how can you spend the money, we actually took Dick and Jeff in with us and Chancellor, and we met with each member of the leadership team. We also met with the members of the leadership and finance committees, the majority leader, the speaker, that's who I'm talking about. They all got that same presentation that you all just had. But they also, like I said, had those programmatic issues. So what we did immediately is we called our army of presidents back here, 35 of them, and they immediately called all of the delegation members that they had, talking about everything, and I'll tell you the things they were saying. Programmatically, yes, they can handle it. Yes, they have the faculty. Yes, they can put the things in place that they need to put in place. And we would put this group of presidents up against anyone in the state to be able to do what they need to do. So they can handle it. Then yesterday was absolutely wonderful because we had Day on the Hill. So we went back in and met with those leadership members. After yesterday, I'm pretty confident that we're okay. Now, you never know what could happen. I mean, the revised budget should come out next week. There could be some changes, but we were verbally told by members that they think that we're going to be fine with this. So a lot of that has to do with, again, yesterday, every one of these presidents went in and met with their delegation members actually in the Cordell Hall yesterday. And so they were reiterating the things that they said earlier to these members. So I don't think people realize we're in a unique situation in TBR because, all the other higher ed entities have government relations teams, 1 or 2 people, but we have a team of 3, but not really. We have a team of 38. And they span the entire state. So when we need to get the word out quickly about something, we can do so. So anyway, I'm proud of our presidents for that, and I'm feeling pretty good. Okay, quickly through this legislation. We are getting there. We're probably 3/4 of the way through. Committees are issuing their final calendars. Some committees have actually already shut down for the year. We were hoping Senate Ed was going to close down yesterday, but they ended up with one bill left, so they'll be back next week. Higher Ed sub closed last week, and House K-12 sub closed this week. Chancellor Tidings has been to every hearing that she has had to attend and done a very wonderful job in presenting. She executed successfully, and we're so proud of that. Right now, though, I want to go to some legislation that we are specifically tracking. We had Senate Resolution 16, 17, and 20 go through. They confirmed Governor Lee's appointments of Regent Hooper, Kastner, and Spurgeon to 6-year terms. All of them went through unanimously, so we're very excited about that. And of course, as we heard earlier, Regent White was also reappointed for the board, and we're glad to keep you, Regent White, absolutely. We have Senate Bill 404 that I want to start with, which would direct TBR to develop and administer a 2-year pilot program to provide financial assistance to students enrolled in programs that lead to non-degree workforce credentials at both community and technical colleges. That's moving through. It's moving through very well, we think. It's placed behind the budget in the House, but that doesn't mean it goes away. It just means they need to approve the budget first, and then they will look at that. Moving on to Senate Bill 364, as amended, would create a 16-month window after a student graduates from high school. During that 16-month window, the student can or may apply for a waiver to still receive the Tennessee Promise Scholarship if the student delayed his or her enrollment to work full-time, not part-time or go to Europe or go play video games in the basement, but if you're going to work full-time. The student would have to provide documentation as well that they are working. That one is also moving through very well. Senate Bill 842 expands the eligibility for the dual enrollment grant program. It allows students to access the grant beginning their sophomore year of high school if they are enrolled at a community college in technical programs. As you know, last year the bill passed to allow TCATs to do that starting in the 9th grade. This would somewhat mirror that for the students in the community colleges as well. Again, it's moving through. Senate Bill 27 amends the Open Meetings Act by requiring a governing body to make its agendas and supplemental meeting documents available in a public place at no charge at least 48 hours prior to the meeting or whenever members of the governing body receive such documents. Again, moving through, I don't know that, Brian, do you want to make any comments on that? It is what we do.
It's what we do. May require minor policy tweak, as will, I think, the next bill that Kim's going to mention.
Okay, and then there's a second similar bill, Senate Bill 551, which is another bill that amends the Open Meetings Act by requiring government entities to provide a period of public comment during certain public meetings. The legislation authorizes a governmental entity to place reasonable restrictions on that period of public comment. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but that is what we do.
Maybe
Senate
minor.
Bill, oh, I'm sorry. You done? Okay. All right, Senate Bill 461 creates the Education and Workforce Data Advisory Committee within the Department of Finance and Administration, requires the committee to develop an education and workforce research agenda. The bill also requires the Department of Finance and Administration to serve as a central repository of education and workforce data and make that data more easily accessible to the public.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes. Senate Bill 834 is known as, we call it in higher ed, the TikTok bill, but there are a few other companies that reside in the People's Republic of China. But Senate Bill 834 is, as amended, prohibits a public post-secondary institution from allowing an individual to access a social media platform using the institution's network if the platform is operated or hosted by a company based in the People's Republic of China. We know of WeChat and TikTok. It does not mean that the student can't pick up the cell phone and use their own cellular data, but it's not going to be on the Wi-Fi that they can access at our institutions. Senate Bill 349, as amended, would require TBR to develop standardized entrepreneur training opportunities that may be offered online or through our Centers of Workforce Development. Now, as the bill was originally written, it required each of our colleges to teach that course, which would have been quite burdensome, and there would be a pretty huge fiscal note on it. So the sponsors worked with us to be able to change that language. Next few bills are still moving forward. Senate Bill 89 authorizes a public four-year institution to offer remedial or developmental coursework. It is our understanding, in the past that has not been the case. It is our understanding that universities now are doing some sort of this anyway in other forms. So this will just allow them to officially offer remedial and developmental coursework. Senate Bill 103 makes it a Class A misdemeanor if a state employee knowingly or intentionally violates the State Nepotism Act and then willfully fails or refuses to remove or remedy the violation. We have nepotism policies at TBR. This might be worrisome for some colleges or campuses that are in rural areas where there aren't a lot of people there, and several people from one family may work at the institution. So, however, that bill is moving forward, and it's actually passed and is waiting to be signed by the governor. So we just need to be mindful that we're following our policies. Senate Bill 301 allows an adjunct faculty member to enroll in one course consisting of no more than 4 credit hours or 120 clock hours per term at the community college or TCAT at which they are employed without paying tuition charges or maintenance fees. So this is something that we already do for full-time faculty. Now this is being proposed for adjuncts as well. Senate Bill 918 requires the U.S. flag and the Tennessee state flag to be displayed continuously on property owned, operated, or controlled by the state, including educational institutions, and restricts the display of other flags on such property to certain circumstances. However, you can fly your college flag or your university flag. That is allowed. Okay. Senate Bill 515 expands the employees who are allowed to carry a handgun on a higher ed campus to include retired law enforcement officers who retired in good standing with 20 years of service and are employed on a part-time basis by a public institution of higher education. This has passed, and it is waiting to be signed by the governor. So it's on the governor's desk. Senate Bill 1501 lowers the age to carry handguns, whether openly or concealed, from 21 years old to 18 years old and eliminates all associated military requirements. These changes would not affect who is currently able to carry on our college campuses. All right, so there are also a few bills that are not moving forward this year, either because they were taken off notice or they did not make it out of committee. So I do want to point those out. Senate Bill 968 allows students who graduated from high school in 2020 or 2021 to be eligible for the Tennessee Reconnect Grant when they turn 21 as opposed to 23. That did not move forward. This one, I think faculty have asked questions about this one. Senate Bill 827 was the campus carry bill that, among other things, would have deleted the prohibition on carrying firearms and other weapons on higher ed campuses. That did not move forward. Senate Bill 1040 would authorize THEC to require the governing board of a public institution of higher ed to terminate programs offered by an institution governed by the board. That bill that was not calendared this year. However, it could come back next year, so we've got 2 years in a session. Senate Bill 1042 would have expanded eligibility for the Wilder-Nafee Technical Skills Grant to individuals enrolled in certain programs that were deemed to lead to quality non-degree credentials. So basically, it's the public money for Wilder Navy grants going to private or nonprofit technical schools, and it failed. Also, the same thing with the thing that we call the More Tech Bill every year, Senate Bill 567, to allow More Tech to be an eligible institution for Wilder Navy, and that also failed. And then Senate Bill 603 would have prohibited public institutions of higher ed from offering certain medical and health-related degree or certificate programs from requiring DEI training and education for purposes of the issuance of the degree. That bill failed. Let's go on to that last one. I'm moving as fast as I can. Senate Bill 323 required a public college or university that asks about an applicant's criminal history for purposes of undergrad admission to develop and implement an additional review process for such applicants, and that bill failed. And Senate Bill 1179 revised the requirements governing how an entity must post notice of prohibition or restriction on the possession of weapons on a property. The bill specified where signs must be posted and the design requirements of such signage. Did not move. All right, on this particular bill, Senate Bill 817, I want to toss that to Wendy and to Brian Lapps to discuss with you, and then I'll go back and do the last one.
Well, I guess I'll start while Wendy makes her way up in the interest of time. Overall, this is an amendment to what was last year's Divisive Concepts Act that applied to higher education. It will require some process changes and a few policy changes, but I don't think it's going to require major changes in the way we do things. And Wendy is probably better suited to elaborate on that last point.
Thank you. We are pleased to report that we believe that we are at or near compliance with the requirements of this particular statute. The only thing that we will be working with after the bill becomes law is to develop a report that goes to the chancellor each year that basically states that anyone within the system who works on DEI issues does so in furtherance of student success and workforce development, which we know we already do. Any questions?
Yeah. And we'll require a couple of other tweaks of a complaint process in case there's a complaint of a violation of the Divisive Concepts Act. That would only be if somebody is allegedly requiring somebody to adhere to or confess or agree to a divisive concept, which really is not something we do. We don't require personal diversity statements, so that won't be a big type thing to do anyway. So we'll have some notices that we have to provide a little bit of training, but as Wendy said, for the big thing as far as the work that the diversity officers do, we think we're pretty good shape on this one.
Thank you.
Okay. And the last one, Dr. Tidings does not know this, but now she does. Senate Joint Resolution 478 is moving through. I have a copy I'm going to give to her. I'm not going to read it because we don't have time, but you all know what it says. She's amazing. But it is a resolution to honor and congratulate Chancellor Flora Tidings upon being selected as one of the USA Today's Women of the Year. And Senator Lundberg is carrying this resolution. So, Vice Chair, unless there are questions, that concludes my report.
Well, thank you. Boy, I hope they can get that last one over the finish line. I think that's great.
Maybe we'll go back over there one more time.
Exactly. That's exciting. Questions or comments for Dr. McCormick? Good report. April 24th is the target adjournment day?
Well, in the Senate, but then some folks in the House said they think maybe more like the 27th.
Okay.
Could be. You never know. Could be beginning of May.
Okay. We will watch with interest. Thanks for all you and the team are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia, staying in this vein, do you have an update, a further update for us, I should say, on the governor's other budget recommendations?
Yeah, so not really. I was already under 5 minutes, and I'll be quicker now because Dick and everybody else has talked about my topics. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Today, I am going to briefly just summarize all the recommendations in the 23-24 governor's budget. These recommendations were previously sent to you in the memo from the chancellor from February 7th. In addition, they're in your materials that were sent out. We had hoped that the amended budget would be out by today when we added this on the agenda, but it is not out. So we're expecting that next week. So I'm not going to give you any really new news. I'm just going to go over what you received in your memo very quickly. Next slide. So on this first slide, I'm going to skip through this. The budget came out February 6th. As we've all noted, Chancellor and members of our team have already presented in front of the budget hearings in various committees. I have bill cutoff dates on there as well. Next slide, fine. This slide is the recommended operating appropriations, again, in your memo on the 7th, but these are broken down by category for our community colleges, TCATs, and the system office. This is showing you the operating appropriations from the outcomes funding recommendations, plus the 7.7% inflationary adjustment, as well as the partial salary pool funding and insurance increase funding. These are in your materials. I'm not going to read them line by line. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer a question about any of these. Perfect. And then this next slide, I'm highlighting other budget initiatives, the $9.5 million for Blue Oval equipment. And then we did receive some additional recurring and non-recurring funding for our correctional education investment initiative. As you may recall, this initiative provides funding to TBR to offer degree opportunities at the Tennessee Department of Corrections facilities. We are currently offering 11 unique degree opportunities, 9 technical degrees, and 2 associate degrees at 9 TDOC facilities. These facilities are partnered with 8 TCATs and 6 community colleges. Since February 2019, TBR has awarded 115 TCAT certificates and will graduate 163 associate students in either May or December of this year as part of this initiative. Next slide. And the next 3 slides I'm not going to go through because this is what Dick and Jeff presented earlier in the Chancellor's report. But these are showing the capital recommendations on these next 3 slides. Again, the $945.9 million rounded up to $1 billion is what you all have seen. That's the big number that we've been getting questions about and talking about. But again, 29 projects across the state. You can skip to the next slide. This was just showing a visual representation, which is in your book and already been discussed this morning, so we'll pass through that. Next slide. Okay, this one's perfect. So we have not talked about the capital projects. This slide is showing the $50.6 million for our capital maintenance projects. So that's 15 community college projects and 24 TCAT projects included in that, as well as some inflationary increases for projects that are already in progress, funded from previous years. And these range roof replacements, HVAC, plumbing upgrades, paving, and then lab upgrades. Okay. So this final slide here is showing you an overall summary of the recommendations in one table. This is including the operating and the capital combined, recurring and non-recurring. So you can see the summary here. Again, it was in your materials, but if you were at our fall retreat and you recall the presentation Dr. Deaton and I did about the historic 22-23 capital budget year, as you can see from this slide, this recommendation for 23-24 represents another historic capital investment in our system for which we're very grateful. And my final slide is just talking about what the next steps are. So again, we had hoped we would have the amended budget for me to present to you today, but we don't. So we're expecting that next week, and we'll share any updates or any changes for our system with you all if we get those. And then you can see the next actions mid-April, end of April, moving through the committees and then the full House and Senate to be transmitted to the governor, to be acted upon by the end of May, and then this budget would be effective for our campuses on July 1st. And with that, I went as quickly as I could. Everybody else covered my content, but I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them for me today.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Fox? Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all you're doing. Dr. Deaton, you are going to talk to us about the latest on our reimagining the community college experience and just keep moving on then to your policy and strategy update. I know our team will be very interested in hearing both of these.
Will do. Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds, Dr. Tidings, members of the board. I want to start today with hearkening back to what this, oops, wrong way, sorry. Yeah, you told me the right way and I pressed the wrong button. Hearkening back to what this board first heard about in the June 22 board meeting where we presented a concept paper about how to reimagine the community college experience in ways that try to reckon with the current environment that we're in and the challenges we face today. That then led us to the September board meeting where we announced we had 4 colleges who had embraced that concept, applied with a grant proposal to us, and have embarked on a journey with the staff here to put these ideas in the field into fall 2023. So what I'm going to do in the next 2 minutes is give you an overview of where that is with an eye towards 2 things. One is that you'll hear a deeper and more lengthy update about this entire endeavor at the June board meeting when they are on the cusp of launching for fall 23. So today's a teaser. Secondly, at the end or somewhere in the middle of this presentation is a QR code which your phones can scan and take you to a single one-page document that gives you a nice overview of what the ideas are and what these 4 colleges are doing to implement the concept becoming this fall. Now, as we start this, TBR began from a very solid foundation. The community colleges had done exceptional work the last many years to improve completion rates and try to align workforce development and academic needs. However, the last 3 years have posed some unique challenges. The COVID and its second and third order effects have changed the game in many of these aspects. The ROI calculus is very different for students. The alignment challenge between industry and education is more acute than it ever has been. And all this is exemplified when you walk up to really any fast food establishment or Buc-ee's or wherever, and you see the wages that employers will pay for people really right out of high school with no training, and it's hard to compete with that. So that calculus has changed, and that got us thinking about how we can better align and position the Board of Regents and its colleges to meet the demands that are emerging over these next many years. So what we have done is essentially try to reimagine what that first semester experience is like for a student. And the key to this entire endeavor is that a student will encounter a workforce ready certificate in their first semester. Contrasted with the traditional exposure they would get to general education courses being on a transfer pathway, the new experience that these 4 colleges are going to embark on will put at the center of the student's experience a workforce-ready credential during that first semester, rather than what is traditionally general education courses in English and math. That then leads us into 2 directions. One is, before all that happens, effective and more robust advising and career exploration has to occur to try to identify where are the student's skills, interests, abilities that match up with those certificates. And then secondly, that certificate is not the end. That is simply the first step. That's a stackable certificate that can then lead them into future credentials, future careers, hopefully culminating in a bachelor's degree. But if not, unlike now, there's something to fall back on that can enter the workforce ready with something that can put to good use. So to skip ahead and to kind of get to the bottom line, 4 colleges are doing this. Those 4 colleges are Jackson, Pellissippi, Southwest, and Walters. That QR code takes you to, again, a one-page graphic, lots of information and text about what those 4 schools will be doing this fall that you'll hear much more about in June as they prepare their final plans for implementation. Let me pause to see if there are questions about that before we roll into the next item, and I'll give you a chance to scan that code. Thank you for those who are doing it.
Regent Shelton.
So just thinking about what the 4 pilot schools are doing, and I haven't had a chance to look at the one page yet, but I did pull it up, so that's an accomplishment for me.
That's right. That's good.
But is this the idea of these 4 schools are going to be doing these as pilots, and then it will roll out to other schools, or do other schools have the ability to come up with ideas of their own that they can do for this? What's the big picture?
Sure. Yes to all that. We hope that this works effectively, so much effectively that we have other schools who want to. Other schools have already called us and said, how do we keep this going even though we're not one of the 4? So we're trying to work with them and support them where we can so that they can implement ideas that they have that are consistent with this. I'll note that so many of our colleges were already on this train of thought anyway and are doing things to kind of move in this direction anyway. In a year or so, when we see results, this may then provide some clarity to your questions about where it goes from here, but hopefully it expands further.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Anyone else? Russ,
Yes, ma'am.
we're having trouble scanning the QR code with the lighting. So could we
We'll
figure
send
out
it
with
out, yeah.
Mariah a way to get this to everybody? That'd be great.
We actually have several things we will email out to you, this and these
Perfect.
next two items, all of which you'll have direct links to. Yeah.
Perfect. To
Yeah.
Ramona's point, an attachment that
Absolutely.
I can hit a print button
Yeah,
on
I
is a wonderful thing.
We anticipate a lot of challenges, but the glare of the lights, I did not think about with the QR codes.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. No, we're glad you're cutting edge.
Yes, trying to. Secondly is a quick update on this board's strategic plan. Recall that in the summer of 2021, this board approved the revised 2015-25 strategic plan. And that is notable because in the post-governance change, post-focus environment, that was the first time this board had ever reckoned with what its mission is as an open access community and technical college system. Out of an abundance of conversations, we identified 7 elements that form sort of the structural integrity of the board's strategic plan. Those 3 pillars you see in the red diamonds, open access, completion, and the community and workforce development pillars. Those are then cross-referenced with 4 themes that get at the how we accomplish those ideas, the idea of collaboration, innovation, capacity building, and equity. And through a good suggestion from Wendy Thompson, we added a verb, an action verb to those to get at how we go about those things, all of which again form the foundation of the strategic plan document. We'll test this QR code too, takes you straight there. But importantly, it's not a narrative. This is nothing you have to read. It is instead an interactive infographic, which tries to take those 7 elements you just saw, those 3 pillars and 4 themes, and then pour into it the various pilots, innovations, programs, ideas that TBR is engaging in. They give life to those plans, that put pen to paper about what those mean for TBR. By definition, that's a fluid, flexible document, and since you approved the plan 2 years ago, we have updated it with new things that we are doing. So if you were to go there in that infographic, you will see the aforementioned Reimagining Community College experience. You'll hear about new grants and pilot efforts underway about advising and coaching. You'll hear about apprenticeships in Blue Oval City. Again, it's meant to flex with the work this board does. That has been updated. It is now current as of this month. Lastly, too, that same strategic plan will include, at this board's request, metrics and an accountability dashboard that allows you to look at a very high level about how TBR is doing across about 24 different metrics that give life to that strategic plan. All of which is also contained in our voluminous data and research library, but this is a distillation of it just for the strategic plan for anyone to see and consume quickly. Are there questions about this before we move on to the last of the 3 items? Regent
Can
Gill.
you scroll it back
Sure can.
to where it had the 4 red
Sure.
blocks? This is a little bit off topic. I'll say it and throw it out there, and then we can address it later. Sometime in my career, one of my mentors told me that when I was thinking about getting married, that love could mean everything from a religious experience to nothing in tennis. I have no idea what strengthening collaboration, harnessing innovation, enhancing institutional capacity, or fulfilling equity means. They
Sure.
sound to me like words that an educational industrial complex throws out there. And
be.
I could be thinking
Yeah.
that I'm asking someone to go play tennis, and they may be thinking I'm about becoming religious. That's what these mean. And the problem with that is that these strategic plans are to pull us together and get us going all in the same place.
Mhm.
But when anybody can define what these things mean, it actually, I think, sends us in lots of different directions.
If we
I
left-
would like to
yeah.
see us, and we can talk about this later, I'd like to see us stop using those kind of terms and start using terms that we all understand. And that someone like me who took English as a foreign language can understand.
Sure. If we, very well said, and we will endeavor to do so. If they were left undefined, that would be a weakness. These are defined in very concise, plain language paragraphs on the infographic that give some plain English language meaning to what we mean when we think about those concepts.
So why not use the plain English that's used on those graphics here and everywhere?
They're paragraphs. This is meant
Okay.
to distill them, but it's a fair point, and hopefully the ideas are come across that way in the reading. If they don't, we will gladly adjust them.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure thing. Any other questions about the strategic plan before we get to the last item? I want to ask Dr. Amy Moreland to begin warming up and making her way here. One of the manifestations of the strategic plan is going to be various tentacles of research and data analysis and tool development that this research team is always engaged in. She's going to present some of the recent efforts in this space, some new insights into dual enrollments that we've never shown you before, a new tool that makes use of both high school and TBR data in ways that hopefully provide really good feedback information to high schools and LEAs, as well as a new research effort we want to introduce today about an emerging area of TBR policy that our colleges have led on that we are trying to better understand to bring more light to those. All of what you'll see here is led and developed by the research team. There are many hands that go into that. I do want to note, by way of a brief personal privilege, one of those pair of hands, the research team lost in a sudden death about 2 months ago, Ted Chilla, our senior BI engineer. None of the work you see here is possible without the work that Ted did. He and Melissa Hunter and Chris Tingle make everything possible by getting the data from the campuses cleaned, ready, into and secure in our data systems. So everything comes from those headwaters. Ted's death was sudden and leaves a hole. And so we basically dedicate these next few minutes to him and his memory. With that, Dr. Moreland, there you are. I'll hand this over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be with you and share 3 updates on behalf of TBR's research and data team. You will often hear us describe ways that we in the colleges are putting data to work, and we'll provide 3 updates of the ways that we in colleges are doing that. One of the ways we put data to work is by telling the story of what the colleges are doing to better serve student access and completion. So we'll provide an update today that tells the story of an important enrollment trend. Second, we often talk about building institutional capacity to better understand trends and equip colleges to inform their outreach to students. And so today we'll debut a new data tool that we hope does just that. Third, we put data to work to better understand the impact of the many innovations that colleges are pursuing, and we'll announce today a new research project to better understand one of those innovations. So 3 updates. First, as we tell the story of an important enrollment trend. TBR and the research teams at the community colleges and TCATs have been closely analyzing enrollment data over the last few years, and in particular have begun to unpack the enrollment trends from the last fall semester. As we have done so, dual enrollment stands out as an incredibly important and exciting enrollment trend. Dual enrollment is part of the state's commitment to providing early post-secondary opportunities to high school students across the state. Through early post-secondary opportunities, called EPSOs, high school students get access to college coursework while still in high school. Dual enrollment is part of a portfolio of EPSOs and is the most common and popular early post-secondary opportunity. Through dual enrollment, students in high school get to take college-level coursework on our campuses and concurrently earn college and high school credit. And most importantly, this is made possible through the state's dual enrollment grant funded by lottery proceeds. And the remarkable part of this story is that over the past decade, dual enrollment has doubled across the system. And you see that data here. Going back to 2015, you see the growth in dual enrollment, and this figure here shows that data at community colleges and TCATs combined. From fall 2015 to fall 22, dual enrollment increased 68%. And if that was not remarkable enough, over the past year alone, dual enrollment across the system increased by 23%. Within these phenomenal numbers represent an important story for each of the sectors of our system, TCATs and community colleges. And so if it's okay with all of you, we'll unpack those numbers for TCATs and community colleges separately a little bit more. The TCAT dual enrollment story stands out as one of the most tremendous highlights that we see in enrollment data. Over the last year alone, TCAT dual enrollment has grown 50%. The number of students participating in dual enrollment at TCATs has grown 50%. And every region of the state and every TCAT has seen increases in dual enrollment over that time period. However, as you have already heard today, West Tennessee leads the way. Over the past year, the number of high school students taking courses at TCATs has risen 70%, and 10 TCATs have seen dual enrollment double or triple since 2019. You can visualize that incredible growth in dual enrollment here. From 2015 to 2022. Again, we saw these numbers at the system level a moment ago. This drills down just to TCATs, where since 2015, there has been a 265% increase in TCAT dual enrollment. This kind of growth in any student population is quite rare. And although these numbers are tremendous, what's behind these numbers is even more remarkable, as this growth represents a great deal of work by the people sitting behind me and their staffs to establish partnerships with K-12 districts and high schools that advance students' access to post-secondary opportunities while still in high school. Again, we said we have seen growth across the state in every region, and that's what this figure here shows. The regions you see along the bottom are economic development regions defined by the state's Economic and Community Development Department. And you'll note, again, in each of these regions, the number of high school students participating in TCAT dual enrollment has risen, but most remarkable is that growth in Southwest Tennessee, which here includes TCATs Crump and Jackson. Those two TCATs have experienced the largest growth in dual enrollment, and the number that stands out the most to me is that at TCAT Jackson alone, since 2019, dual enrollment has quintupled. But again, every region has seen this type of growth. And in particular, a few fields have driven that growth. TCAT dual enrollment students select specific programs of study, and what you see here are some of the largest and fastest growing of those programs. The largest TCAT dual enrollment program is welding technology, and it has continued to grow by 26% over the past year. Healthcare fields are also popular among TCAT dual enrollees. We said welding's the largest, but the second largest TCAT dual enrollment program is patient care technology and medical assisting. Farming operations technology is the quickest growing, the fastest growing dual enrollment program. It has doubled in size over the past year, led in large part by TCAT Crump. And again, this kind of growth is special and remarkable, and one of the things that makes this most remarkable is that while TCAT dual enrollment has grown, so has community college dual enrollment. Over the last year, community college dual enrollment has grown 12%. And there were some slight dips in dual enrollment after the onset of COVID-19, which makes sense as colleges faced new obstacles related to pandemic-related restrictions to build and execute new high school partnerships. But 7 community colleges this past fall grew their dual enrollment even over pre-pandemic numbers. The leaders among those were Nashville State, where dual enrollment grew 34% over the past year, and Southwest Tennessee Community College, where dual enrollment grew 44% over the past year. To put that growth in context, another data figure here. This is showing the growth in community college dual enrollment, represented by the dark blue line there, compared to other student types at community colleges. We've talked before with this group about how nationally and in Tennessee, community colleges have navigated enrollment challenges since the start of the pandemic, but dual enrollment has been the one area that has remained steady or risen during the pandemic. And our system of community colleges this past fall reached a milestone we'd never reached before, which was that this past fall, for the first time, dual enrollment students outnumbered incoming freshmen by about 1,000 students. As you can imagine, all of this growth in dual enrollment prompts a number of questions about who are the students who are accessing dual enrollment, what are they encountering when they access dual enrollment at TBR colleges, and how does dual enrollment help them get where they're going after high school graduation? So we've pulled just a few things here that you might find interesting about those community college dual enrollees. There were nearly 18,000 of them across the state this fall, and most of them were quite academically well prepared for college-level coursework. 3/4 of them had high school GPAs above 3.5, and many of them, when they come to community colleges for dual enrollment, are using that opportunity to address general education course requirements so that after they graduate high school and begin college, they can quickly move into their chosen program of study. General education English and math courses account for nearly half of all dual enrollment activity. After students complete dual enrollment at community colleges, many of them are university bound. We see that about 1 in 4 after they complete dual enrollment at a community college come back to that community college. Most of them, though, enroll at four-year universities. There's a lot more we could say here about this important enrollment trend. We're thinking a lot about overlap or differences between who TCAT dual enrollment is serving compared to community college dual enrollment. We see some interesting demographic differences. For example, at TCATs, about 1/3 of those dual enrollees are female and 2/3 are male. And at community colleges, we see the opposite. The majority of community college dual enrollees are female. We're also thinking a lot more about the footprint of dual enrollment at community colleges and TCATs. As dual enrollment has grown so much, you begin to think about the ways that that impacts an institution. So the figure you're seeing here on the right speaks to that footprint of dual enrollment. This one shows of the entire student body of 4-credit students at TCATs and community colleges. What proportion of them are high school dual enrollees? At TCATs this past fall, more than half of all the 4-credit students were high school dual enrollees. At community colleges, it was 1 in 4. In other words, this is not just growing, but is making a sizable impact on the student body at large. As we continue to think about how we put data to work, we can use data to tell that incredible story of how dual enrollment has grown. But we are also hoping to use data to enhance institutional capacity, what does that mean? To me, that means putting real tools in the hands of people at colleges who can do something with that data. And in that spirit, we're happy today to announce a new data tool that is an addition to TBR's existing portfolio of interactive data dashboards. If you've visited our website, you know we have a lot of data there, and this is another tool in that toolbox. What makes this tool a little bit different is its scope and comprehensiveness. On the TBR website now, there are what we call our high school pipeline dashboards that would allow a college to see how many students are currently in the pipeline at high schools in their service area, and historically, how many of those students have enrolled at their institutions. This new tool extends that pipeline analysis by allowing colleges to drill down into success rates for students who've graduated from high schools in their area. And I'll show you just very briefly what this looks like, and then we're also happy to share the direct link to this after today's meeting. This new tool would help us do a few things. One, it would address some data needs about how many students are reaching some important college milestones. How quickly are they earning credit? Passing those gateway courses that we know are really important to their long-term success. And coming back the next year, graduating, transferring, all those outcomes that we know are important milestones along the way. But what's special, I think, about this tool is that it has all of those comprehensive metrics, but it would also allow a college to see that data for their institution, for their region, for specific districts in their region, and even for graduates of specific high schools. So a president could say, I know a lot of students come to my college from Metro Nashville Public Schools. Show me how many and where they go and how they do. And then to drill down even further to see how well students do from Antioch High School or Hillwood High School or McGavock High School or any public high school in their service area. This tool is the first of its kind in the state, as far as we know, to provide both this level of comprehensiveness and outcomes and the ability to drill down in these really granular ways. We had the privilege earlier this week to give a quick tour of this new tool to the presidents, and we look forward to getting this in their hands and the hands of their staff to further use data to inform outreach. And then very quickly, I'll add one final update. We're also putting data to work to understand the impact of the numerous ways that colleges are innovating to better serve students. One of those chief innovations is the rising use of accelerated courses, which, if you're not familiar with that term, accelerated courses are those that compress the traditional semester into shorter chunks, often 7 or 8 weeks. And evidence suggests that these compressed courses increase student access, student learning, and student success long term. Chattanooga State has led the system in this over the last 3 years and has taken this model almost entirely to scale. And they've been very generous along the way to share what they have learned, and now other colleges within the system are following their lead. You can see a little bit of data here about the prevalence of these courses across the system. Last fall, 15% of all course enrollments were in this format, and 1 in 4 students took at least one of these compressed accelerated courses. Now, this may seem like just a change to the academic calendar, but what this represents is significant movement towards a new way of thinking, both about teaching and learning and about campus operations. You can imagine as you start to change the academic calendar what that means for financial aid, for registration, for faculty workloads, and for student experiences. And so I'm happy to share today that TBR has received grant funding from a private philanthropic funder named Ascendium Education Group to dig in and better understand this important innovation. This work will be conducted in partnership with researchers at Stanford University. The lead author on that grant and the lead researcher for this project is a new TBR staff member named Madison Dell, who is seated here to my left. Madison's waving. Madison has joined our team over the last year and immediately upon joining our team wrote a fantastic grant proposal that allows us to dig more into this idea in partnership again with Stanford University. You can see on the right how we're planning to approach this project. We first want to put data to work to understand what these courses mean for student success, both short-term and long-term. But we also want to talk to people, and so we've planned a great deal of qualitative work, interviews with faculty and staff, and most importantly, students, to understand how they have experienced these courses as they've grown in prevalence. We, in that qualitative work, have 3 partner community colleges who very graciously agreed to help us with this. So we are very, very grateful for the partnership of Chattanooga State, Dyersburg State, and Nashville State in this new grant-funded project. So that concludes our 3 updates. I will remind you again that TBR has voluminous data and research resources available online. The QR codes here would take you to each of those resources, but I know sometimes that doesn't quite work, so an easier way to get to some of those things is always just to go to tbr.edu and click on the big red button that says data, and that'll take you to all of these resources. With that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions about these data updates.
Yes, sir.
So, an observation and a question. The observation is that yesterday I had the honor of doing the interviews for the staff position, and the young lady that won from TCAT Crump, if I had a nickel for every time she said dual enrollment, I'd have a couple $100 on me right now. She was, there's the work that she does, and it was just fantastic. My question is, and Russ, I told you I'd try to come up with one here, but my question is, if you go back a couple, 3 years and look at it, do you have any data on the kind of the employment of these folks that are coming through the dual enrollment program and what that means for employment, jobs that they're getting, and any way to benchmark what's going on there?
I think that's top priority for us, both to understand where they enroll, if they enroll in post-secondary after dual enrollment, where do they go? And then longer term, how does that prepare them for the labor market? That's that's top of our agenda right now, and I think our next step is to get access to some of that data that allows us to track them beyond their experience with dual enrollment.
Others, Regent Gill?
Wow. It would take me at least the rest of my term to digest all of that, but it's really, really impressive, very much so. My kudos to you all. One quick question. You had the breakdown for the community colleges for dual enrollment in terms of their academic success. Do you have anything like that for the TCATs?
Not yet. It's still early on, and that growth in dual enrollment has certainly prompted us to dig into those questions quite a bit. Our sense is that it is different, but we don't have the data yet to quite do those same breakdowns. And any historical data we would have wouldn't tell the story of what's new and what's different here. One particular thing, though, that we have done that stands out as we think about those TCAP dual enrollees and who they are, is that, as you heard earlier, last year legislation was passed that allowed dual enrollment to expand to students earlier in their high school experiences. So the largest growth area for TCAP dual enrollment over the last year has been among 15-year-olds. So you think freshmen and sophomores, 15 years old, where that enrollment has tripled.
That is great. Getting them younger is all the better, right? Yeah, Regent Barlow?
Really nice job presenting a lot of data and making it very understandable. You just have a gift. Really nice job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Exciting times.
Yes. Thank you.
That's why we need all these new TCAP facilities, right? And community college resources. We are growing. Dr. Reed, I'm going to ask you a favor.
Yes.
Since Russ, did you leave? Did you have anything else? All right, well done. Well done, thank you. I'm going to ask you and Dr. Hollins a favor and flip some order here in the interest of time for a very important person here today. And with everyone else's indulgence, I'm going to go to item number 9 first on our list of action items, since we're now moving into those, and take a few minutes to honor our now former regent, Yolanda Green, but who will always be a regent with us, and we're not going to let her ever get very far at all. But with that, I would like to call on Regent Mary Lou Apple to offer a resolution of appreciation.
It's my honor. Thank you, Chairman. This is a resolution of appreciation for the service of Regent Yolanda Green to the Tennessee Board of Regents. Whereas Regent Yolanda Green was appointed on May the 23rd, 2017 by Governor Bill Haslam to serve on the Tennessee Board of Regents to represent the 4th Congressional District, and has served with distinction, integrity, and merit. And whereas Regent Green earned her Bachelor of Science degree in biology with a minor in chemistry and a Master of Business Administration degree from the Tennessee State University. And whereas she is a leader in the banking industry, she serves on the Rutherford County Market President for First Horizon Bank and has served in many banking capacities. And whereas Regent Green's expertise and experience enables her to provide leadership to her local community through her service with many organizations, including her time as chair of the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce. And whereas she faithfully dedicated herself to the community and technical college system by serving on the Presidential Search Advisory Committees for Motlow State Community College, TCAP Murfreesboro, and TCAP Pulaski. And whereas her dedicated service on the Board of Regents has also included countless hours of support and valuable advice to the system, its institutions, faculty, and students, including speaking at innumerable commencement ceremonies, convocations, groundbreakings, building dedications, and other celebrations. And whereas she participated in the board deliberations and contributed greatly to the governance of the system by serving as chair of the Personnel and Compensation Committee and as a member of the Audit, External Affairs, and Finance and Business Operations Committee, and whereas she is an individual of high integrity and wisdom with a sincere interest in the welfare of the Tennessee Board of Regents system and Tennessee higher education. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Regent Yolanda Green for her years of service rendered and leadership afforded to the Tennessee Board of Regents system. On a personal note, I want to say if you've been around Yolanda you'll realize she is an energetic, compassionate, competent professional who's truly dedicated to seeking ways to improve all the lives of the citizens of Tennessee. She is a gracious lady who really loves her family and her faith, and she was a valuable member of this team, and we thank you, Yolanda. With that, I offer this as a recommendation, a motion to accept the resolutions of appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done, Regent Varlin. Thank you, Regent Apple. Regent Varlin, a second, and we thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to.
Thank you, please.
Yolanda, I don't want to just say what she said, but you really have been a fantastic board member and friend. All of us that know you just will miss your presence, but we will honor and love the friendship that we've developed with you. You have been just a very thoughtful and helpful member of this board in bringing forth questions that are in your area of expertise and helping, like she said, all students. But it's just been a pleasure and a privilege to get to serve with you, and I look forward to keeping up with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yolanda, I've certainly enjoyed over the years our discussions, but I'll tell you what I'll miss most of all, your smile.
Oh,
Thanks, Mom.
sweet. Chancellor?
I have to echo everything that has been said already, and just to say that you are a true role model for all of us because of your great attitude, your ability to jump in and get things done, and to always have been there to help us as a system move us forward. And we are truly going to miss you on this board, but as Regent Reynolds said, we're not letting you go. We're planning lunch dates and calls, so thank you for everything.
Absolutely. I didn't bring my tissues up. I didn't think it was.
We can help with that. So we have a motion and a second. If there is no further discussion, all in favor of approving this resolution to honor our colleague, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Regent Green, you're a star.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I feel like I should do this because there's so many friends on both sides. Last night, when you lifted up the word family, that really resonated with me. I think back over these past 6 years, and my kiddos were 9, 5, and 3 years old when I was welcomed to the board.
Does that include Dwayne, or is he?
I think he's always in that 3 to 5 toddler age right there. And now we're going to have, now they're 15, 11, and 9.
Wow.
And we're about to have our own, college discussions about what's next. And so this time has just flown by. I'm truly thankful for our regents, my fellow regents, the college presidents, and the full TBR family for welcoming me to this board 6 years ago. This time has been well spent and has reinforced and strengthened that our Tennessee families have the best college system in the nation, with the power of education and the power of student success. So thank you for everyone in this room for your influence, doing the work that keeps our education system moving strongly and still remaining reliable, relevant, and relationships, and with strong relationships. The relationships that I've built over this past few years, and the insight that you guys have given me, I don't know how many times I've leaned over and said, explain this, and had other conversations. It's just been truly valuable. thank you for allowing me to pour into the board, into the colleges and our TBR system. And you're right, I still plan on staying connected. I think President Torrance and President Wade probably have some agendas for me that's going to keep me active in Rutherford County. But thank you to everyone. Thank you for welcoming me and kind of using our whole family to be able to support the board. I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
Well, you just closed by saying you will miss us. As the kids always say, we will miss you more. This is but a very small token of our appreciation, our beautiful crystal TBR paperweight. Take it home on your desk. I've Zoomed with you there, I know. Take it to the bank on your desk wherever is appropriate. But again, as you said on the word family, you will always be a part of this family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, y'all are awesome. Thank you.
Thank
This is
you.
nice.
They
Dwayne
go back
doesn't
to work.
get one of these.
Dwayne
No,
doesn't. That's right. First Horizon's
All
home.
right.
Bye, dear. We'll see you soon. Thank you. One more time. Hers is going to be an amazing future, continued chapters to watch. The governor's office is also very much aware of what a talent Yolanda Green is. So my hope is they will continue to keep her engaged in various ways as the years go by. She is one of a kind, and we are fortunate to have had her service on this board. So thank you all. Bye, Yolanda. Did she head out? Oh, are you there? Oh, bye, dear. Safe travels. All right, let's return to our action items. Dr. Reed, thank you for your patience, and we'll pick back up with you and Dr. Hollins.
Thank you. We're wonderful to celebrate Regent Green with everyone. So thank you all again. Here to talk about our TCAT program approvals. The Office of Academic Affairs is bringing forward 26 program proposals and 17 action items are being presented for the board's approval. This is in accordance with TBR Policy 2.01, 0.02, 0.00, Technical College Program Review and Approval. It is also in compliance with the Council on Occupational Education, which is a COE accreditation, which requires documentation around program approval from the governing agency. All documentation for these proposals are in your materials. At this time, Dr. Tashaka Hollins will provide a very brief highlight of those programs for you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, and good morning, Madam Vice Chancellor Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and all those of the board. The Office of Academic Affairs is pleased to support TCAT's efforts to deliver quality instruction to individuals seeking career entry and or career advancement in some of the state's most in-demand and high-wage occupations. Before you today is a culmination of programs in 4 in-demand and high-demand areas, and those include advanced manufacturing, construction, healthcare, nursing, and logistics. The other way. Thank you. TCATs create steady pipelines of skilled candidates for approximately 56% of jobs in Tennessee that require more than a high school diploma but less than a 4-year degree. The 26 new program proposals and program expansions and 16 program modifications before you today demonstrates TCAT's dedication to aligning academic programs to workforce needs. Slides 3 through 5 include those 26 program proposals. In the next few slides, I'm going to highlight some of those noteworthy proposals that support the recommended academic actions that are before you today. First, we've got TCAT Elizabethton with the MEET. Hold on. with the meat processing technology, they've collaborated with the Department of Agriculture, the Appalachian Resource Conservation and Development Council, local school districts, and various retail partners to develop and offer the first meat processing technology program in the state.
Technicolor from your standpoint on that?
There's been a lot of investment in the meat processing industry in support of the livestock industry in the state. And agriculture's #1 industry, and that's a big part of it. So we're delighted with this.
Yes, and several folks from the Department of Agriculture, we've been in conversations about a year now to develop this program. So kudos to TCAT Elizabethton for being a pioneer and a leader on getting this program in the inventory and offering, again, something that's highly in demand. TCAT Elizabethton is also proposing to expand the pathway in practical nursing. With this expansion, the school will increase its capacity to serve more students, therefore increasing the pipeline of licensed practical nurses in the state. We heard a little earlier from Dr. Amy Moreland about the huge increase that we've had in dual enrollment for patient care technology. And just to put numbers to that, system-wide, we've experienced a nearly 400% enrollment growth in patient care technology due to the realization of how vital and versatile a medical assistant is in the healthcare facility. So TCAT Jackson is proposing to expand their patient care technology medical assistant program to fulfill employment needs in an industry with high demand for medical assistants. We've got TCAT Livingston coming on with a new truck driving program. This will be the first truck driving program in their service area and the communities that they serve, as well as TCAT McMinnville that it is expanding opportunities for educating Tennesseans in the skills and preparation for truck driving. Both of these programs will meet workforce shortages in the truck driving industry. And I am working to get us back on schedule. So I'll forward to the final slide here, which includes a snapshot of the program modifications that are before you. These have been approved by the Office of Academic Affairs by our Vice Chancellor of Academics, but we do bring these before you as a notification to let you know. These are anything from maybe a program name change to a program length. Maybe it's going from a year long to a year and a half long. But as you can see, these proposed actions that are before you today allow for our TCATs to be more responsive to workforce needs by aligning education with careers. The Office of Academic Affairs requests the board's approval, and I'm available to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions or comments on these? Again, the more detailed from the slides was in our background packages as well. It all looks great, and we're being nimble, right, and staying on top of trends. And when you said truck driving, a certain guy to my left lights up, right?
Yes.
Exactly. If there are no further questions or comments for Dr. Hollins, this does require a motion and a second for us to take a vote. Thank you, Regent Apple. A second for approval. Thank you both. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of approving these proposed TCAT program changes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you. Dr. Reed, you are back up. We have some faculty emeriti to consider.
Yes, thank you. Our focus on faculty emeriti refers to TBR policy 5.02.01.10, which allows our college presidents to recommend candidates of retiring faculty for faculty emeritus designation to recognize their distinguished service at that institution. There are no specific criteria in this policy, but historically, it has been based on faculty members' length of service, their contributions to the college, their teaching and academic scholarship, and just their overall service. There are no monetary benefits afforded to this designation. However, Presidents do have it within their discretion to provide other benefits such as office space or library privileges. Board members, you may also recall that this policy was adjusted about 3 years ago to allow review by the Vice Chancellor and Chancellor prior to board approval, and to accept these recommendations from colleges on a quarterly basis rather than an annual basis. The individuals being recommended for emeritized status are listed in your materials, and their bio and details are as well in your materials. And we are now recommending them for board approval.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the recommendations? Institutional knowledge that's gone or going out the door, but again, we're glad to hold them close and have them close by. If there's no discussion, we need a motion to approve these, please. Regent Barlin, was that you? Thank you. And Regent Burdine, do I see a second coming there? Thank you so much. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of approving these distinguished folks who've made great contributions as faculty emeriti, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dr. Reed. Thanks for all you're doing. Chancellor, I'm coming to you with 2 building naming requests.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Nashville State Community College recommends naming their North Davidson campus building in honor of Doug and Robbie Odom. A naming committee was appointed, and the committee unanimously approved this recommendation. Doug and Robbie Odom were longtime residents of Madison, Tennessee, where they were married for 74 years and parents of Larry, Teresa, and Debbie. Continuing the family business, Doug took over the operation of Tennessee Pride Sausage Company. They were exemplary role models for reading and learning in the state of Tennessee, and in particularly the Madison community, home to Nashville State's North Davidson campus. While neither had a formal higher education degree, they were passionate about providing pathways for their children, employees, and members of their community to achieve their educational dreams. Their work supported and established multiple scholarships at universities and high schools in the Middle Tennessee area. Through the generosity of Doug and Robbie Odom's children, the Nashville State Community College Foundation received its largest individual pledge in the history of the foundation. The pledge of $1.25 million will be donated to the college over 5 years. To honor their parents, the children wanted to especially impact the community where it all began, that of Madison. It is my pleasure to bring this recommendation to the board for consideration. And I'd like to call on President Shauna Jackson for her comments at this time.
Good afternoon. It's almost noon, I think. Madam Chair and Chancellor and the Board of Regents, I want to personally thank all of you as you consider this recommendation because it's really special to me. One, because it's my first time bringing a recommendation like this to you, and two, the North Davidson campus was a labor of love. The campus represents the vision that we have for the college and a deep investment in the Madison community, a community that has been underserved for way too long. The Odom and actually the Massey family saw this early on, and they were vocal champions for having a location, a higher education institution in Madison for many years, and really helped us to identify where our current location of our first building of the Madison campus will be. So a lot of personal investment as well as a large financial commitment, which will continue, just speaks volumes to what the family represents and a really wonderful way to honor their parents' legacy. Now, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Doug and Robbie, but certainly have spent countless hours with the siblings, as they call themselves, the Sibs. And so I am proud to say their far-reaching education that they instilled in their children will now be seen in the halls of yet another academic building. And so we know that this is going to help generations yet to come. Thank you.
Very exciting. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Chancellor or President Jackson? That is an amazing facility. So we're so proud to have it. If not, this too requires a motion to approve.
I move for approval.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Hooper. Any further discussion? All in favor of the naming request from Nashville State to honor the Odom family, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, President Jackson. Chancellor Walter State.
Yes, ma'am. Walter State Community College recommends naming their building at the Claiborne County campus in honor of Eleanor E. Yoakum. A naming committee was appointed, and the committee unanimously approved this recommendation. Ms. Yoakum was president of the Walter State Foundation from 2010 to 2011, and she is a donor to the college. She was instrumental in assisting the college in securing the old Claiborne County High School building and converting it into a Walter State campus. She has served on the Tennessee Arts Commission, and she was appointed by President Bush to serve on the United States Federal Advisory Board on Tobacco. She was also appointed to the Tennessee Board for Economic Growth by Governor Don Sundquist, and she also served 6 years as a Tennessee Higher Education Commission board member and is currently serving on the Tennessee State Museum Commission. On the county level, she has served on the Claiborne County Election Commission, the Claiborne County Hospital Board, and served on the Claiborne County Industrial Board. Eleanor truly believes in serving others, which is why Walter State recommends the building on the Claiborne County campus to be named the Eleanor E. Yoakum Building. It is my pleasure to bring this recommendation to the board, and at this time I'd like to call on President Tony Mixka, second-time College of the Year winner, to come to the...
Do you take that to the men's room with you? And just...
Maybe. You never know. Last year, I got to speak of our strategic plan after we won, and I didn't bring the trophy, and I got picked on because I didn't bring the trophy, so I thought I'd bring it this year. But some of you may know Eleanor Yoakum. She is a character. She's a wonderful person. She's been a huge supporter of the college. I think two things I think that were important to think about with her. Number one, she was really instrumental in securing that building in Claiborne County, and our mission or our strategic plan is to transform people's lives through education. That building has really done that because that was kind of a desert a little bit in terms of educational facilities up there. So she helped with that. The other thing I always joke a little bit with Eleanor, I have to drive up Highway 25 from Morristown up to Claiborne County or up to the campus up there. And I remember driving a few times, and then I realized she has a part of the highway named after her because she's been represented so well across the state, as you said, Chancellor Tidings. So she's wonderful, and we really appreciate the opportunity that you bring this forward and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any further discussion or comments about this naming request from Walter State? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Varlin. Any discussion? And Danny, did you want to say anything about Eleanor? I thought I heard you over here.
So she is a character, that's for sure. She's a pleasure in so many ways, and I'm really excited about you doing this for her.
I think that's great. And her whole family has made so many contributions.
Yes.
They're amazing. So if there's no further discussion, all in favor to approve the naming request in honor of Eleanor Yoakum, please say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Brian, coming back to you with a revision on a retirement policy, you guys, that we just kind of discovered and working on some things coming up. And we really don't know the root of this. This should be a very simple revision. My personal view is it's a good housekeeping one. But Brian, why don't you explain it to the board?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And exactly as the chair said, this is just a housekeeping mention. The only proposed change is minor but substantive. It removes the age requirement that one be 60 years old to receive the emeritus designation as a former president. It retains the requirement that one be 60 or have 10 years of service at the institution. And because this is strictly an honorific going forward, no president qualifies for retirement payments, so this would not affect anything financial. But it's just a housekeeping to remove what appears to be a vestige of former times and just inertia.
Any questions for Brian on this? Hearing none, this of course does require a motion to approve as well.
So moved.
Thank you both. I'll take yours as a second, Mary Lou. How's that? Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this update to our retirement policy with regard to the honor or the emeritus title, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and any opposed? Thank you all. So we've already had one bittersweet moment with the departure of Regent Green, and we have about 3 more in front of us here over the next few minutes. And we will begin with the consideration of the resolution of appreciation for former President Roland Rayner. And with that, I will call on Regent Powers, who will do the honors for us this afternoon.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm scoping out the room to make sure President Rayner. Perfect. Awesome. It is my distinct honor to read this resolution into the record. A resolution of appreciation for the service of Dr. Roland Rayner to the Tennessee Board of Regents. Whereas Dr. Roland Rayner has 32 years of service with the Tennessee Board of Regents, first with the Tennessee Technology Center at Whiteville as a job training partnership ACT coordinator, counselor and recruiter, and in student services and financial aid coordinator. He then joined TCAT Memphis, where he served in many progressive roles prior to his appointment as president. He retired on February 28, 2023, after serving 13 years as president. And whereas Dr. Rayner received a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Tennessee at Martin Govalls, a Master's of Arts degree from Webster University, and a doctoral degree from the University of Memphis. And whereas he is a graduate of the TBR Leadership Academy and the Regents Academic Leadership Institute, and received the Skills USA Administrator of the Year Award. And whereas Dr. Rayner increased student enrollment by nearly 28% from 2009 to 2017, and led efforts that garnered job placement rates for his students of 85% and higher. And whereas over his career, Dr. Rayner contributed to local and state workforce development efforts and collaborated with partners such as FedEx, the Gene Haas Foundation, Cummins Diesel, and many others to expand the college's technical education footprint. And whereas he served on numerous boards and committees, including the Bartlett Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, the Workforce Investment Network Advisory Board, the People First Board, as chairman of West Tennessee's TCAT Subcouncil, and as a member of the Chancellor's Search Committee. And whereas Dr. Rayner expanded the TCAT Memphis training footprint throughout the Memphis-Shelby County service area by acquiring over $31 million for capital building, campus improvement, and training equipment upgrades from local, state, and federal entities. And whereas he exhibited excellent communication and interpersonal skills, serving as the foundation for effective networking and collaboration required to maintain positive partnerships with local, state, and federal elected officials, labor management, and community leaders. And whereas he shall be missed very much by his colleagues, faculty, staff, students, community leaders, and alumni of the Tennessee Board of Regents and its colleges. And whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents wishes to grant the title of President Emeritus as an honorary designation, and now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Dr. Roland Rayner for his contributions and leadership to the system, and wishes him the very best in his retirement. And Vice Chair, I'll just add that anyone that has spent time around this man and his family can attest to the fact with his wife and especially his grandkids, we understand why he's leaving, as they have him wrapped around their little fingers. And he's a family man, and he's a good man who has given so much to the greater Memphis community. We have been blessed by his passion and his commitment to educating our youth and our adults. And also, speaking of family, As we have worked through the search committee process, we have had the pleasure of getting to know his team better. And it's clear from knowing them that he has cultivated meticulously a culture of that family environment with his team and his students, and we're forever grateful. So it is my honor and privilege to make a motion to accept this resolution of appreciation for the service of Dr. Roland Rayner to the TBR.
Beautifully said.
I'll
Thank
second.
you. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much, Regent George. Any further discussion? Chancellor?
It's very hard to talk about Roland leaving because he has done an incredible job at TCAT Memphis. And anytime you call and you talk to Roland, he is going to be thoughtful. He's going to be considerate of the issues that we're discussing, and then he's going to be a man of action. And he's going to take care of anything that arises or comes up, and that is going to be hard to replace. I am truly going to miss you, but when you talk about the passion of your family, I know why you're doing what you're doing. So thank you for all you've done.
Just two quick things. One thing I've always admired, and I shared this with Dr. Hall recently, is the relationship that you two share. You truly are the best in collaboration. You're just a living, breathing example of working together for the betterment of our colleges and your community, and I have great admiration and respect for that. My second observation, though, is now not quite a month or thereabouts into retirement, I rounded the corner, or not the corner, rounded the area where the reception was last night, and see several of our college presidents, all female, engaged in great laughter. And who was in the middle of it? The usually sort of solemn, composed Roland has become a comedian overnight. And with that, I learned very quickly that you are enjoying retirement. But we thank you so much. Let me take care of one housekeeping matter before we open the floor to you. We have a motion and a second pending to honor the service of Roland Rayner with this resolution of appreciation. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Dr. Rayner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to say that a lot this afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. To Vice Chair Reynolds, Regents, Chancellor Tidings, I really appreciate those kind remarks. I truly do. When Mariah Perry called me a few days ago to invite me to the board meeting and shared the reason why, I immediately began considering what to say to express how blessed I am to have had an opportunity to work with so many wonderful people over the years. I also thought about how to deliver my comments. At that point, I remembered some advice that I got from two gentlemen many years ago, one being Mr. Russell Shelton and the other Mr. James King, the mentors. The information or advice they gave me during one of my annual performance evaluations, they basically told me to make decisions with your head and speak from your heart. I knew immediately on Mr. King's part what he meant by that. He meant be sure that you have my Diet Coke and my barbecue sandwich ready whenever I come to the campus. I understood that right off. Just kidding. But it's a true story. You gotta have that Diet Coke ready. I never forgot that advice, and I want to thank those two gentlemen for allowing me an opportunity to work within the Tennessee Board of Regents system. In my view, the best higher ed system in the country, without a doubt. It didn't take me very long to decide on a common but powerful phrase that expresses my gratitude. Simple, thank you. Thank you. I have used those words thousands of times to express my appreciation to everyone or a group of individuals who helped me during my work journey. I thank God for providing me the opportunities and the passion and the drive to serve others. Serving others is one of the most rewarding and important things I have ever done. to the faculty, staff, and students at TCAT Whiteville. I worked there for 8 years, and to TCAT Memphis, 24 years, 2 months. It was a pleasure to connect and work with each of them during my tenure within the Tennessee Board of Regents system. I am so grateful for the dedication and hard work they put forth to garner some incredible accomplishments year after year. Thank you. I would be remiss if I failed to recognize the tremendous support from elected officials, regents, chancellors, central office staff, institutional advisory members, my TCAT Memphis leadership staff, and hundreds of industry partners over the years. You provided financial support, leadership, sound advice, and a hand when needed, which helped to produce some highly skilled graduates that employers were eager to hire. Together, we made a positive impact on thousands of households and businesses. Thank you. To my TCAT and community college presidents I've worked with over the years, thank you so much for your friendship and your support. Thank you. I also want to take an opportunity to thank my wife and my children who were patient, during my work career. I want to thank them for their prayers, and I want to thank them for their constant encouragement. Ladies and gentlemen, working within the Tennessee Board of Regents system was an honor and a blessing. It allowed me to do what I enjoy most, serving others and helping them to make their dreams become reality. Thank you all. I wish you much success with your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. Thank you, sir. I also want to mention another special thing about this group. In support of Dr. Rayner and his two colleagues, Stuart and Myra, who are coming up, two of their former colleagues, folks who also made considerable contributions to this community, Dr. Carol Perrier and Dr. Lynn Goodman, are here to salute their friends as well. It's great to see you. It's a real testament, as Roland was pointing out, just to the respect and the camaraderie amongst this group. So it's good to have you back in the room. Well, let's move along and do this again, shall we? As painful as it is in many ways, or bittersweet is a better word. President Stuart Smith, we would like to honor you next. Make your way to the front. We will miss your bow ties. And I will call on Regent Varland to read the resolution of appreciation for Stuart Smith.
With pleasure. Hi, Stuart. A resolution of appreciation for the service of Mr. Paul Stuart Smith to the Tennessee Board of Regents. Whereas Mr. Paul Stuart Smith has 30 years of service with the Tennessee Board of Regents system, first with the Tennessee College of Applied Technology at Crump as the admissions counselor for 5 years. And whereas Mr. Smith joined TCAT Athens as the assistant director for 10 years until his appointment as interim president in 2002 and then president in 2003. He retired on December 31st, 2022 after serving for 20 years as president. And whereas he was instrumental in the development of the McMinn County Higher Education Center, which houses TCAT Athens, Cleveland State Community College, and UT Agricultural Extension, and creating educational opportunities closely aligned to workforce needs and needs in the region. And whereas Mr. Smith served on many council on occupational education accreditation teams and also on the Cleveland State Athens Campus Advisory Committee. And whereas he served his community in numerous capacities, including former chair of the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce, where he served on the Small Business Committee, Health Expo Committee, New Year's City Celebration Committee, I could see that, and Leadership McMinn, past president of Athens Kiwanis Club, member of the Athens Park Foundation Board of Directors, United Way of Directors, and Grace and Mercy Ministries Board of Directors, the Athens Area Council for the Arts Board of Directors, and the YMC Board of Directors. And whereas he shall be missed by colleagues, faculty, staff, students, community leaders, and alumni of the Tennessee Board of Regents and its colleges, and whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents wishes to grant the title of President Emeritus as an honorary designation, and now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Mr. Paul Stewart Smith for his contributions and leadership to the system and wishes him the very best in his retirement.
Thank you, Regent Varlin.
And I'd like to add a personal note, because Stuart and I have known each other, I think, since I first came on the board for about 13 years now, and now you live in Knoxville, so I have run into him downtown. But you have taught me so much in just having me out to your campus and inviting me to share in many of the activities that you do, and I greatly appreciate that, especially as a new regent, because it really helped me become acclimated and understand what you do. So I appreciate that, and you've just been a great friend. And I will end that with a motion.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation for Stuart Smith. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent White. Any discussion? And Chancellor, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. I had the privilege of meeting Stuart when I first arrived in Chattanooga as a president, and he was one of the first people that reached out to me and came over and met with me. And we were able to talk about a lot of things that we wanted to do together, how we were going to work together to move both colleges forward. And I've always remembered that and that friendship that we were able to have. And Stuart as a president is one that I didn't hear from Stuart a lot unless there was something he really needed to talk to me about. And so I had to reach out to Stuart at that point to call him and say, everything, yes ma'am, everything's great, we're all doing fine. And it always was. You kept everything running the way it should be. And I won't say that it was in his blood, but Stuart did happen to have a father that actually served as a president of one of our technical colleges. So I think he was born to be in this position, and we are so grateful for the service that you have provided. Athens is going to miss you greatly, because I know now you are going to be a full-time resident of Knoxville. So thank you so much for all you've done.
Thank you. Well said. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of our resolution of appreciation for Paul Stewart Smith, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Stuart, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming to do this with us today. And again, our theme last night and today has been family, and you certainly exemplify it, as the Chancellor just said.
Well, thank you, and it's an honor. It's been an honor for sure to serve this board throughout my 30 years. One of the things, particularly for today, is that the two people before that are being honored today, also Myra and Roland, we all kind of started at the same time. Roland and I worked at schools right next door to each other, and spent a lot of time together here and there. But anyway, so it's very special to see all the success that he's brought. And following Roland, is kind of a hard one to follow. So anyway, and of course, Myra and I are from the same county. She is a wildcat, but she had the good sense to marry a bulldog and brought him with her. So but it is special, and I appreciate the words from Regent Varlin. We've always at Athens, our mantra was just to be honest and do the things the right way, and sometimes that's hard. But the team always looked to do what was right and not try to cut corners. We weren't one of those, well, we'll do it and then ask for forgiveness. We always try to do it right the first time, and to be involved in the community. So that I feel like we've done that. I just wanted to make a note. When I started, it was $77 a quarter. And so that's about 10 times today what it was then. But James King hired me there all the way from Rickman to West Tennessee. I didn't know a soul. And then he had, I guess, I fooled him enough that he hired me again as the as the director. But I thank James for his leadership and mentorship. And I served several governors. And I just want to note that probably the governor that impacted the TCATs the most was Governor Haslam with the Drive to 55. That's when I really started to see the interest in the students coming, the younger students coming right out of high school. That did more to impact the TCATs, I think, and the Tennessee Promise than any of the fine governors that I've served with. Those of you that know me know that I don't suffer long speeches, so I'm not going to subject you to one as well, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for that opportunity to serve the great state of Tennessee and the citizens of Tennessee. And I'll see you in Knoxville, and I'll be in there in 2.5 hours, and go Vols.
Thank you. Second group of pearls of wisdom we just received. Do things the right way the first time and always be honest. Thank you, Stuart Smith, for your legacy of service to us. You are missed. And finally, one of the first people, or one of our first presidents that I met when I came to this board, we'd like to honor our former president, Myra West, from the TCAT at Livingston, as Stuart just said. I'd like to call on Regent Gill for this one, and I know she is special to you as well.
She is. I am here to present a resolution of appreciation for the services of Dr. Myra Smith of the Tennessee Board of Regents. As you said, there is a special relationship, and I didn't know it with Dr. Smith as well, is that we all grew up in the same area. Rickman was backyard, Livingston a little further backyard. So I wanted to share something that was common to that area. And one of the things that whole area loves, as you know, is a good story. And so I had a really good story about a wife who was a wildcat and a husband who was, but in Kroger and in front of the freezer and romantic something. But I was afraid that you would faint in the process, and so but nevertheless, I'm going to be honest here. Regent Apple, would you scoot over and see if she starts breathing hard? Okay, good. Okay, well, good. About 50 years ago, I left my home in Putnam County and came to Nashville. My lifelong desire had been to grow up there and stay in that area, in the area of my ancestors where they had been so long. But financially, it just wasn't possible. And so I came here. Nashville's been great to me. But Putnam County's always been my home. And I think you probably understand that, and you have imparted that to so many people there. And you did it along with many of your fellow TCAT presidents when there wasn't always the resources and there wasn't always the recognition of what you were accomplishing. And I am here today hoping to be able to proclaim that period's over. Unfortunately, you suffered through the hard times, but what you did was you brought that to the forefront. And I am very pleased to tell you that my son now lives in my home where I grew up in rural Putnam County, and he does really good services in the HVAC industry and loves it. And I feel like that you deserve a lot of that credit along with so many, especially from that area, because it's a unique area and you're a unique person that was able to deliver that most people, if you're not from that area, may not really understand. So I appreciate that. And if you would like to hear the rest of the story about Kroger, the end of the punchline was they weren't allowed to come back to Kroger. Anyway, so I have a resolution.
I'd be so grateful if you'd read the resolution.
As written? Okay. Whereas Dr. Myra West has over 34 years of service with the Tennessee Board of Regents system and retired as president of Tennessee College of Applied Technology Livingston on December 31st, 2022, after serving over 9 years, and whereas Dr. West began her TBR career at TCAT Livingston, starting as an instructor in the Business Systems Technology program, and then becoming the Student Services Coordinator. She then briefly served as the interim director at TCAT Hartsville, prior to transitioning back to TCAT Livingston as the assistant director and then president. And whereas during this time, she also taught in Tennessee eCampus, the Tennessee Technology University Leadership Graduate Program, and in the Tennessee State University Classroom Management and Teachers as Agents of Change program, in which she developed, taught, and facilitated learning through assessment. And whereas Dr. West opened and received counsel on occupation education and Department of Education accreditation for 2 instructional service centers and 1 extension campus, obtained several grants, led new initiatives, provided vision and leadership in statewide curriculum development, and oversaw expansion projects and secured additional dual enrollment opportunities. And whereas she served as a COE member since 2012 and has been affiliated with the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools and COE since 1992, where she served on numerous accreditation teams, visits as a team leader, assistant team leader, and team member, and on the COE Committee on Accreditation Standards and Conditions and its Committee on Nominations. And whereas during Dr. West's tenure, she held and maintained several membership affiliations with the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development and the Honor Society of Phi Kappa Phi. And whereas she has been a prolific mentor of faculty, staff, students, and community members across the state, and has encouraged growth of excellence in countless individuals whose lives she has touched. And whereas she shall be missed by colleagues, faculty, staff, students, community leaders, and alumni of the Tennessee Board of Regents and its colleges. And whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents wishes to grant the title of President Emeritus as an honorary designation, and now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Dr. Myra West for her outstanding contribution and leadership to the system, and wishes her the very best in retirement. And I hereby make a motion of acceptance of this resolution for the appreciation for the services of Dr. Myra West to the Tennessee Board of Regents.
Thank you, Regent Gill. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Regent Apple. Any discussion? Chancellor?
Absolutely. I have to thank Myra for all that she's done, not just for TCAT Livingston, but for our system as a whole. Myra was a thought partner on a lot of initiatives that we've been putting in place over the last 6 years. Her advice was always sage and right on, and the partnerships that she formed in that area are immense. And I have to say that it was actually Stuart's dad that called me not too terribly long ago to brag on Myra about the great job that she was doing in that area and the gratitude. You didn't have to be there to feel it. The students, the faculty, and the staff, it was a family, and they, I know, are missing you, but loved you, and are happy to see you doing what you want to do now, because I know Myra's had this in her mind for a while that she wanted to move on, and I think I kept pulling on her coattail for a little longer than she wanted me to. But thank you for everything that you've done for all of Tennessee and your work on COE, because not just a thought leader for the state of Tennessee, but you've helped shape COE policy and procedure for a long time. So thank you very much.
Beautifully said. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Dr. West, welcome. And I just have one question for you this afternoon.
Okay.
Are you going to the Kroger when you go home?
No, ma'am. That was my first remark to clarify. I do not know the Kroger joke.
Okay.
The only part of that might be true is I am a true blue Wildcat from LA. And my husband is very lucky
that he married a wildcat as a bulldog, Stuart. So, and that's an inside joke from the area. You would know that.
LA is in Lower Allgood?
No, sir. Livingston Academy, and that is a public
Yeah,
school, although it's
that's
county.
right.
But Vice Chair Reynolds and members of the board and Chancellor Tidings, I've had an amazing career for the past 34 years. And it was truly an honor to serve as president of the TCAT Livingston. I want to go back about 10 years ago when I wasn't president, and about this same time I was sitting with a group interviewing for the position of president. And I remember that Regent Steve Copeland, and some of you remember Regent Copeland, he asked me during that interview, he said, "Myra, tell me about the mission for this school." And I looked at him and like anybody would, I recited off to be the premier provider for workforce development in the Upper Cumberland, because that was the mission that was on the brochures and the catalogs and everything. But then I looked right at him and I said, "Regent Copeland, it's so much more than that, and that's not really the true mission. The true mission of the TCATs or the vocational schools, trade schools, TTCs, whatever you've called us over the years, has been about changing lives." And I said, it's about taking an individual who walks through our doors wherever they are in their life and giving them a skill that will forever change their lives. It will change their lives, their families' lives, and it will change the community in which I live. And I said, that's what it's all about. And I want you to know that's why I stayed in Livingston for my 34 years. I had opportunities, but I wanted to stay there because I did want to make a difference in the community in which I lived. Like Roland said, there's so many people in 34 years that you want to thank, and we would be here all afternoon if I had the opportunity to thank all of the individuals that have played a role in my career, but I do want to take an opportunity to thank just a few. The first would be the former director for the TCAT Livingston, Mr. Ralph Robbins. See, he took a chance on a 23-year-old, fresh out of college, who needed a job, and I needed a job. I was not an educator. I really, to be honest, didn't even want to be in education. I hate to stand here and say that, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. I was a business major, and I was going to work in banking, and I was going to have this great career. But this job came open, and he hired me and took a chance. But I soon learned that he had given me the best job that anyone could have ever asked for. I was an instructor, and I'll stand by that today. I've had many positions, but the best job is an instructor, working with those students day in and day out. And so for that and all the other opportunities that he gave me throughout my time at TCAT, I do want to say a sincere thank you to Mr. Robbins. Also to the former Vice Chancellor of TCATS, Mr. James King. He gave me many opportunities, and some of those opportunities I turned down. And a lot of people would have said, okay, you've turned them down, and so be it. But he didn't do that. He continued to encourage me. He continued to give me opportunities, and he eventually hired me as the director for TCAT Livingston, and for that I will be forever grateful. I know we don't have a TCAT office right now, but there was a TCAT office for many years of my career, and there were several staff members in that office that provided myself as well as others with lots of guidance and support and helped us grow as leaders and became the mentors that we needed to be successful. So I will have to take just a minute to say to Dr. Carol Pereira, Dr. Lynn Goodman, and Bob Wallace, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you did for me throughout the years. They're great friends, and they continue to be good friends. To the faculty and staff at TCAT Livingston, they are absolutely the best. My colleagues in the room would not agree. They would think theirs are, but mine are the best. And they are dedicated and loyal. But there is one thing I want to tell this board. I am so proud to be able to stand before you right now and tell you that the one thing I'm proud about that faculty and staff is their love for their students. And it is a deep love, not just that superficial love, Regent Gill. It is a deep passion for their students and their relationship. And I am so proud that we have that at TCAT Livingston.
And last, I want to thank my family, my husband Mike, and my kids, Brad, Clint, and Jazz, for all their love and support. There were many days, especially in the last 8 or 9 years, that I came home and I was probably running on the last drop of energy that anybody could have. Dinner wasn't cooked, laundry wasn't done, the house didn't get clean, but they never complained. They were always there to support, love, and encourage, and I could not have done it without them. So thank you so much. And I'll just close with this. Every morning, now that I don't have to get up and go to work, when Mike does go to work, he asks me a question before he leaves. He says, "What are your plans for today?" And it has become a running joke because my standard answer and the answer is, I have no plans for today. And so I'll leave you with this. My years at the TCAT Livingston, the days were wonderful. But having days with no plans are really great. Thank you so much.
Dr. West, you said that when Rafe Robbins hired you, he quote unquote took a chance on you. I don't think he took a chance at all. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, what he saw in you, and the potential that was there. And you have taken advantage of it in the best possible way every step of the way. And it has been a blessing to the TCAT Livingston and to our TCAT family, and our TBR family. So thank you. It's a pleasure to honor you today. Well, thank you all. Chancellor, any closing announcements?
Just real quick, I did fail in the beginning of the meeting to welcome our two newest presidents to their first board meeting, Dr. Susan Hutto and Dr. Patrick Wade. Would you please stand and let us just recognize you as your first meeting? Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks for a little bit of an extended meeting today, but we covered a lot of important ground and had a good conversation. Just a couple of quick things before we officially close. Next month, you will receive the survey for the Chancellor's evaluation to complete. And as you know, Nisha's leading that with Personnel Committee. So keep an eye out for that email about mid-month or so, and you'll have several days to turn that around. Second of all, in a few short weeks, we will be at the Chattanooga Choo-Choo at Chattanooga State, June 15 and 16. So we look forward to our next time together and to being back on a campus, and one that, as we learned today, is leading the way on these accelerated courses. So it'll be a pleasure to be with Rebecca and her team there. Of course, to everyone, once again, thanks for participating in all aspects of the SOAR Awards, including our celebration last night. What a marvelous time, and congratulations to all of our nominees, finalists, and winners. It was an extraordinary occasion. So well done, Woman of the Year.
We're just attaching that to the,
Exactly. Oh, yeah, and I should add apologies to all of the presidents, as Chancellor left about last night, for Tony Mixa having that trophy now for the next year. And poor Suzanne now has to inherit this mantle as well. So, but to Morristown, Tennessee, a big shout out. The whole community should be incredibly proud of you guys. So well done. And finally, you guys, Regent Burdine shared with me, we started the moment on a sad note. I certainly don't want to end on a sad note. But we lost 9 soldiers this morning, apparently, out of Fort Campbell in a tragic helicopter collision. So once again, we never know what the days might bring. But what we do know today is we have enjoyed time together. We have respected colleagues. We've even had a few tears. Safe travels home, most importantly. Hug your families like never before and stay close. Thank you all for your service. If there's no further announcements or any other business, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you all.